Welcome to the Art of Lifting podcast. We have got the Worlds recap for you today. I'm joined by Charlie again. We're not going to do a play-by-play recap. We have decided to rate the battles of each weight class from F tier all the way up to S tier. And we're going to just kind of go through what we've picked for each, starting with F tier, so the lowest. Charlie, on the men's side, what did you put as F tier? Obviously, some of the tiers will also overlap, just in case people are wondering.
I could pick between the two of these, but it's got the 66s were the worst to me. Because if you've got Shell, who's described himself as being like completely out of form, and then still coming in and winning by 40 kilos, then it's an underperforming weight class and an underperforming champion. And it just feels like there was no spectacle in it. And I couldn't tell you too much about this, actually, because I think I fell asleep whilst watching it. But it was really like a not very entertaining session in the 66s. So, yeah, easily that was the worst. I only tuned in to watch the 52s, and I think I just cut it off after the 66 came on.
I agree, actually, on that one. That's probably going to be one of the only ones we agree on. I didn't mind watching it. We knew going in that Shell wasn't feeling anywhere near as good as he did for Sheffield. I think by that point, his little 66 bubble had burst. And he even said on the King of the Lifts podcast straight after that he's completely done with 66 now. Like, it's just not worth it for him. And I think it just sounds like he was mentally checked out of cutting and putting up that performance. Like you said, he didn't have a great day. I mean, he still put up an amazing total for a 66, but he had a bad day for him and he still just wiped the floor. I think it's worth mentioning Avery as well. So Avery came in with was it 720 here at PA Nationals roughly? And I can't remember exactly what he totaled. I've got the results somewhere, but he hit 700 on the day, which naturally you're going to expect a bit of a downturn on the day of Worlds, but obviously he didn't show up as strong. And I think had he shown up as strong as, maybe a little bit stronger than he was at PA Nats, it might have been a bit more exciting viewing, but it wasn't a battle. The battle for third was decent enough to watch and tune in for, but obviously when you've got the winner and second that comfortable, it's just not that exciting to watch. So I do agree with you on that one being F tier.
And I think it makes it difficult as well that it's like where all the 66s just departed and all the names that you'd like become familiar with over like the course of the past couple of years. None of them being there meant that it wasn't interesting who might have been shooting for the podium still, or like who was chasing Shell. Because even Avery, it's like he made a big splash at PA Nats by beating Jonathan Garcia, but past that, there's nothing really behind him, and you don't have any sort of like connection to any of the lifters or any familiarity. So it really was for me just by far the worst session of the comp.
Yeah, I think it doesn't help that there were so many unfamiliar names. And I think the names that were there this year, they're still going to be very entertaining to watch in future years. But it was just that we didn't really know them this year. The 66s used to be like a super stacked class with all these big names that were always there. And they just weren't there this year. And actually, I don't remember in that much detail, I'll be honest, because obviously it was the start of the week and it wasn't the most entertaining of classes. Like, I don't have many notes on it. But it doesn't look like the battle for third was that close either by the looks of things, because Santos, who placed third, missed his final pull and still placed third. So it couldn't have been that tight of a race for third either. So,
yeah, and I would say in equal measure, I know that I'm kind of skipping the fact that you're supposed to do the next pick, but the 74s were pretty much the same story. Just the thing that makes a difference is Perk did come in really strong, and it raises like a really positive question mark about what is he going to bring to Sheffield, because this was night and day difference between what he put up last year compared to this time around. And I think the person in second as well, Chen Fan, also had like quite a good day breaking that bench record, and there was somewhat of a battle for third. But I think I'd have to level a lot of the same things at the 74s as I would with the 66s, where it's just clear who's going to win. And I've got to say, just for the entirety of like the first half of Worlds, the female battles, which we'll come to in a bit, just by far eclipsed the men's, and they were just so much more fascinating than anything that we saw from the men's side, because the 66 and the 74s were just uncontested, and I don't think that makes for a good watch.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think thankfully the women's sides were such entertaining battles, which obviously we'll get into. It made watching the session obviously more entertaining, easier to stick with. But yeah, like the 74s, I also put as my other F tier pick for the men's, because Herc was always going to win, and he showed up so strong that he literally won on 5 attempts, and he's made a mark in terms of, it's really exciting to see what he does at his next meet now, which obviously will be Sheffield. But yeah, it's not entertaining to watch someone do lifts that are super easy and win that comfortably, and not like, he didn't go all out on literally any. I think the only thing that looked remotely hard was his second bench, but he still had room on it. And then, yeah, like you said, Chinchilla Fan had a good day, placed second, but was in a league of their own for second. There was a close battle for third. Joshua Wright came third on bodyweight. I picked him for third anyway, so I think as I watched it and he came out for his last pull, I remember being like, oh, he'll get this. Like, I don't remember being like on the edge of my seat, like, oh my God, is he going to come third? Which normally I would be. So although it was a close battle for third, I think, again, Joshua was probably, I think on any other preview show, people put him in third as well. So it wasn't even like a shocking finish for the podium at all. Like, it was exactly as what I think most people thought it was going to be. So yeah, I think that also, the only exciting thing I think coming away from this one is what is Perk going to do at Sheffield, providing obviously Trump turns up healthy and whatever else. So
Scott, that's a really loud train going past. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, thank God.
Okay, good.
No. So I'll give my F tier on the women's side, or do you want to do all of the men's first?
I've just gone at the all kind of like the same, and I don't actually have any female F tiers, so this will be where we disagree for the first time. But I also do have one last male one. But let's hear yours.
Okay, so I thought we had to have ones in every single tier when we made up this plan. So
if you don't want
I have got one in the F tier, and I'm going to stick with it, and it makes me really sad. I did put the 84s as F tier. Now, it was still good to watch. I still enjoyed watching it. Obviously, like, I'm an 84. I loved watching it. I enjoyed just seeing how it all unfolded. Obviously, Ziana, amazing third pull, broke Amanda Lawrence's record. Amanda didn't come out to try and beat it. It was the first year that Amanda kind of just held back, which I think is a good thing, because she should save it for Sheffield. She did PA Nats. She, I think she'll save it for Sheffield, and hopefully she'll have that performance we're kind of waiting for from her. But Amanda was the clear favourite all along, and I found it, as much as I wanted Ziana to obviously be close to Amanda, like, I would love to see Ziana win, obviously, but it wasn't close, and I felt like listening to the commentary, they were talking as if Amanda slips up, Ziana could win, but that was never really going to happen, because on squats, she's not too far behind. On deadlift, obviously, they've got very similar pulls. I think Ziana had the bigger pull on the day. I don't think Amanda would have had that 270 on the day. But bench, Amanda is far enough ahead, although Ziana's has improved a lot, that she's just comfortably in the lead there. And then I think Ziana was kind of in a little bit of a world of her own as well. There was a battle for third, but let me just get the results up, make sure I'm getting this right. There was a good battle for third, but I think it was fairly clear that Jess was going to come third. I think Lucy is a very good lifter, but as soon as her opening pull didn't go to plan, it was quite clear that she wasn't really going to be able to improve much on that opening weight, which obviously she got on her second. Want to shout out Melina, and this is where I don't like putting it as F tier, because I really loved watching it, but I loved watching it because I'm invested. Like, it's my weight class. There's two lifters in there that I know, that I love, like, and obviously Jess Bittner as well, massive fan of her, Amanda, just so many familiar names. I think I have to mention the fact that Melina managed to place fourth in this class. Like, it's Melina's first year open Team GB. Like, she's competed for Team GB as a junior. It's technically her second year in the Open, but she did Euros, she became European champion, and she just placed fourth at Worlds in a really stacked 84 class. So I think that's definitely worth shouting out as well. And yeah, it was a really good watch. It was a good session to watch, but it wasn't a battle, which is why I put it in F tier.
Yeah.
And I think I did have one more note just before while I remember it. It really frustrates me watching Jess get red lights for her deadlift, because Jess is shaky at the knees. She's always been shaky at the knees. And a couple of years ago, it was either last year or the year before, she got a lot of calls. I think it was blue lights for the fact that it was like hitching or assisting, but it's not. She's just shaky at the knees. Yeah. And it's almost like I think her opening pull got a red light, and it was super easy. It was just she shook. And it just really frustrates me that she gets red lights for that, and that, like, on certain days, that's going to obviously eliminate her from any battles because her deadlift is a big weapon for her.
It's a bit strange as a ref, 'cause it's like I would never think in a comp to give that as like a no lift. And it does make me think, like, what's the decision making process behind like what happens there? Because it's clear that she's not supporting. It's clear that she's not like bouncing off of her legs in order to get the bar higher. So do you think it's sometimes that, like, the refs thinking, would somebody give like a red light for this, and are they going against their gut? Because it doesn't make sense in those situations as to why they are like picking up failure cards, because as you said, like, there is nothing wrong with it. She's just shaking.
I guess from the angle they're at, like, I would like to say that they're giving a fair call in that it looks like her knees slip under the bar for assistance, but I just think it's so clear that that's not what's happening. I know I'm not in the ref seat, and I wouldn't normally criticize refereeing, but it just feels like that's a really unfair thing for her, because she is just like, she's a shaky lifter on any of her lifts, and it's just a bit like, well, it puts her at a massive disadvantage, but she's always pulled that way, and she's had world records before, she's won world championships before. Like, it's quite clear that she's a clean lifter. And it just feels really unfair that she gets penalised for that. Also, just before you jump into the 84s and where you place them as well, one thing I noticed with the 84s is the refs weren't really judging elbow depth. Now, I don't like elbow depth. I hate the rule. I hate the way it's being executed and called out, and it's so inconsistent anyway. I'm not going to name lifters, but there were a few lifters when they played the replays, and I was like, they are clearly higher than a lot of those lighter weight women that got called for it, but they're not being called. And I just thought it was a very clear inconsistency. And I like that they weren't called for it, because I think it's a silly rule, but it made the judging even more inconsistent throughout the week.
Yeah. I've got to say, like, with where I put the 84s, they were at the bottom of C. Like, I think the only reason they didn't end up at the bottom was just because it was really nice to see Ziana take the record, and, like, as we're both from GB, that's why that gets a little bit more credit. But other than that, like, I agree, it's just Amanda's show still, and until she's challenged, it's really hard to be excited for a weight class like this. And I think it's also, like, with all of the ones we just listed, it's where Sheffield really doesn't help, because you're no longer going to see people really push at the World Championships to do as well as they can. They're all going to hold back and save it for another competition, and it can take away from that spectacle of, like, we're gathering the best people in the world here to go up against each other. It'd be really nice to see these people push as hard as they can, and where they're not, I think that's the big issue that you get with Sheffield, is it can detract from these other meets, because lifters are going to save it for when they go to Sheffield. So yeah, and I did
just have a thought, World Games as well is probably what Amanda is waiting for, because it's only like a 7 or 8 week turnaround. I'd imagine Amanda's actually thinking, I'll save it for World Games, especially if her and Ziana both aren't going to cut. It might make it a little bit of a closer battle. Again, I think Amanda's still in the clear for now. Might be a completely different story next year, but I wonder if she also held back for World Games, because she did PA Nats, obviously very short turnaround for this, then another meet, and then Sheffield.
I do also believe that she just wasn't capable of that 270. Like, the 255 looked closer to a top end than it would have in other meets, and it was probably the sensible decision to go out having made the last pull that she did, rather than, like, trying to defend her world record and miss it. And, like, while she was clearly winning, sometimes just, like, don't want to go for it if you know that it's not there. And then, like, saving herself for World Games. So there's that. The last one to finish off the F tier is probably the 120 pluses for me. I don't know about you, but I will always find this weight class boring so long as, like, Jesus is around. Because he's done two things. He's made it boring in the way that you know he's going to win. And then if he's not there, you don't get the spectacle of watching Jesus lift. And it's like when I was watching Euros, again, it was a really boring weight class, because it's a load of lifters that I'm just not really that aware of, because they all exist under that shadow that Jesus has cast. But yeah, it's that twofold thing of, like, he dominates it and he's so good that you're just not getting that competition. And the fact that he's able to go, oh, you know what, like, I'm actually just going to take my squat opener and just move with that. And he wins with a squat opener and a deadlift opener and 3 benches. it shouldn't feel like that in the weight class where it is supposed to be like these people lifting ridiculous amounts of weight. So I think it is just like it's set up in a really boring way, and I guess Jesus somewhat suffers from his own success in a way there because he has just wiped out all the competition, and with Tema cutting down to the 120s, or I imagine that he's still going in that direction. Yeah, there's just not really much reason to tune into it, and it was just the other thing that was playing whilst the 84 pluses were on. I will say that AJ's squat was very impressive, and it will be exciting to see how he progresses in future years. But past that, yeah, it's just not a very captivating weight class for me, and I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not. But the 120 pluses have never had an appeal to me, and this World Championship was no different.
I agree with you. I put 120 plus in C, but that was only because I'd already put 2 in F and I didn't want to put a third one in there. I was toying with whether to put that in F tier or not. Pretty much the exact same thing. It's like Jesus put up such a big total at Sheffield a couple of years ago that he struggled to replicate it. Like, his training into this meet looked the best it had. And if he was going to replicate it, it would have been at this meet most likely. And he didn't. And obviously he came out and hit one squat. The second squat, I think they had the rack height wrong. And then he went to set up and it just fell off. And then I think he said he was dealing with, like, I can't remember if it was his groin or his adduct or something as well. So he didn't come out for his third. And yeah, he in a class like the 120 plus, the jumps they make from lift to lift, it shouldn't be that you're that clear in the lead that you can literally not come out from multiple attempts and still win comfortably. Like, that shouldn't be possible. But obviously it isn't. It's a testament to how strong he is. Obviously, like, he is an incredible, like, lifter. Like, he is that far ahead. I did enjoy watching the 120 plus, but that's only also because I was really intrigued to see what the GB guys did. So Paul had a fantastic meet. I can't remember what his total was going in, but he hit like 947.5, and it was just like, I enjoy watching him compete because I remember him at Euros having loads of fun, and like, he had a really good squat session. He had a really good day. So I enjoyed watching the 120 plus for the reason of there were some names in there that I was looking forward to seeing what they do. Like you said about AJ with his squat, it was entertaining in that front, but in terms of a battle, it just wasn't really entertaining. And like, I think, am I right in thinking Timo was the only one that pulled to try and get on the podium? And Timo's pull for podium was never going to happen because his second at 390 looked like he didn't get the lift on a technicality, I think, but it looked close to max effort. And then he still went up 15 kilos to try and get on the podium, which was never going to happen, even though he's pulled more than that before. Like, it just clearly wasn't there. So AJ placed third pretty comfortably in the end. And yeah, it just wasn't the most exciting of watches. I don't think Jesus is doing World Games. I'm not sure on that.
Most of the Americans have dropped out of it. I think Jonathan Garcia is the only one, and then Petrie is supposed to be dropping out of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure which ones are and aren't doing it, but like, I think the problem is with Jesus, like, it's just going to be so hard to have, like, you can't train that heavy year round because obviously it's just so much load on your body. And I think it'd be silly to not save it for Sheffield to potentially get money out of it. But then that's where obviously this time he didn't qualify for Sheffield. He was the only world champion not to qualify. I'm assuming they were going to pull for it on his deadlifts. I haven't done the maths.
He was pulling for Sheffield in his second and third.
Yeah. Which anyone that hasn't watched it, like, he didn't get those again on technicality. It was his typical thing of like his kind of grip going, and he wasn't standing upright at lockout. Like, he kind of softened his knees under the bar, which I can't put myself in his position because I'm never going to be deadlifting 400 plus kilos, let's be honest. And I'm built very differently to Jesus. But it's been an issue for so long that it actually annoys me a little bit when I see them posting that. So I don't know if you saw this. He was posting his deadlifts leading into the comp, and he was pulling like 425, and they looked okay. But I still, as a ref, from the angles he filmed from, was like, that won't pass. That won't pass. But then they were getting quite defensive, saying that it would pass. And it was almost like they were in denial that it was still a problem. And this has proven that it is a problem. And I know different refs might have given the call, but he's been called on it enough that they need to, and I'm sure they are addressing it. But I think being in denial about it online is just frustrating because it's clearly still an issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's not passionate worlds, so yeah, it's an issue. It does need to be solved. It will continue to hold him back from that very top end that, like, he reached a couple of years ago at Sheffield. But it's like, if you've been working on it this long, it's like, what can you possibly do to fix it? Or do you just, at a certain point, admit that maybe because you're repeatedly having this technical fault, your top end isn't where you think it is, and you just stop shooting for that top end and accept that it might be something a little bit lighter, and then try and work up from there? But yeah, I guess if you're repeatedly failing at it and then it's finally cost him Sheffield, it might be that thing that makes him work it out.
But then I think I mentioned this on the preview show that we did with Manny as well, and we were talking about his deadlift, and we were saying how strong he looks, but I was saying, do you think maybe he's gone with the approach of overload it in training, so pull the 425 and it not be totally clean, because then in theory the 410 will be light enough in comparison that you can pull it more cleanly, if that makes sense. Like, maybe that's what they were going with, but 395 is light enough for him that clearly hasn't worked if that was what they were thinking, which that is a bit of a reach for me to kind of justify it, but that's all I could really think.
If that was the approach, it's like throwing shit at a wall in order to practice for darts. It's like you need to practice the skill, not just overloading the weight. And if you can't do it at a certain weight, then it doesn't mean that you can all of a sudden do it at a lighter weight. And the proof is there on the platform that strategy didn't work. It might be because of the heat, and it could have made like the weight that's on the bar a little bit harder from what was happening on the day. But I don't know if that would be the strategy. It would be an odd one to take. I'd personally always want my lifter executing well with the right weight, rather than not executing well with something over what their actual capability and comp would be. So
yeah, obviously I agree. That was the only thing I could logically try and make sense of. I like that you mentioned the heat there as well, so I think that is probably important to just mention, especially towards the second half of Worlds, obviously as the lifters were getting heavier. It was repeatedly mentioned how much a lot of them were struggling in the heat, just with obviously being really warm there. And like, I saw people saying that the warm-up room was basically a sauna, like even people that weren't lifting were like just sweating constantly all day, like, and that will obviously impact 120 plus. Like it's a shortish flight anyway. I can't remember how many lifters were in their flight, but I'm pretty sure it was like literally 8 lifters probably, like it normally is. That's a very short turnaround for people lifting those loads at that body weight anyway. Mix that in with the heat, like you're going to see a bit of a downtrend in performance, which maybe the grip was literally just the sweat on the day. It could have been. But at this point, like their experience, and it's not just Jesus, obviously it's in all weight classes, all lifters, and I'm sure we'll talk about some other questionable things that happened as well in the other classes, but everyone, like I've not competed at Worlds, but I know for a fact that if I compete at Worlds, the turnaround's going to be quick. I have to train with shorter rest breaks. I have to, if there's a really hot venue, adapt for the day, maybe lower things a little bit, make sure I take extra things for rehydration. You know, it can all be planned for at this point. And if it's not your first Worlds, there really is an excuse for it to be those little things that making it go wrong anymore? Not really.
Yeah. I agree. I think they know the length of the flights ahead of time. They've seen what it's like in the past. Like last year, it was consistently 8 across the board for the top flights. So just do your conditioning work and make sure that you can manage it. And then I guess it's just like adjusting your attempt selection accordingly. Don't go in expecting your top end if you know that there's going to be certain environmental factors that would lead to it not being the case. And I'll learn about it in 5 weeks because I'm a fake 120 plus that's going to be competing in the heat in Turkey. And I will have a reflection then, because that's something that's at the forefront of my mind is like, how am I actually going to go about the attempt selection? I think there's only 6 lifters that I'm up against. It's going to be really short flights. And for me, that's the one thing I'm worried about is how am I going to handle it in the heat? Can I use this as like an advantage to myself, where other people may just be thinking about going in and getting certain numbers and not thinking about the implications of like getting. But I guess it will be a good kind of like test of the theory behind it versus the practice of it, and like is the conditioning work that I'm doing actually going to pay off, or am I going to have the same difficulty? So I'll withhold a proper opinion, but like on paper I agree with you. It's like you know what's going to be happening, so prepare for it.
Yeah, no, completely. I'm guessing there's no more in F tier for you. We're on C tier now?
No, we're on the C tier, and I think these should just be quick on my end, and I reckon we'll be able to rattle through them. But do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go first?
You can go first.
I'll go first. At the bottom, have a guess. Have a guess. What do you think it is?
Are you on men's
Females.
or women's?
Yeah.
69.
Well done.
Same.
Yeah, it's the same thing, but there's just a bit more quality on show for me, to be honest. Because I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure, despite being like a decent distance in second, Carol O'Gara still came third overall in terms of best lifter. And yeah, there's just like much better talent in this class, I think, and it's what brings it up a little bit. I personally don't like that Agatha just does side quests at Worlds. I was having a conversation with a few people about it recently, and it's like it's not bad, but it doesn't sit right with me that she just treats Worlds like a side quest where, you know what, I'm going to go in and see if I can hit 10 times body weight total. As where all of these other people are taking it really seriously and trying to do as well as they can. She's just going like, it is what it is. Like, I'll just do whatever I fancy doing. But on the other hand, it is a testament to how impressive she is. I think it dampens it a little bit that she was so light that so she couldn't really push to her top end, and she definitely didn't have the day that she wanted. Finally, there was something that made her struggle a little bit, and that came in a really severe water cut to basically the 63 kilo class. But it does have to be said that a 6'12" total is really impressive. She would have won the 63s if she wanted to go down there, and she was still out of reach in the 69s and would have beaten Carlina as well. So yeah, that was an all right watch. It's a shame that you don't see a top end though, because it's like 6'12" doesn't feel that impressive with the levels that she's set. Carola was pretty clear in second. She just had a sitting target in Chandler Bab, which it does have to be said, it's impressive that she's managed to get on the podium from the B group with everybody being able to target that and nobody actually being able to make it. But yeah, really from there, that's all I have to say. I don't really think there is too much to say about this weight class.
Yeah.
In the same vein as what we've just said about the other 3 or 4.
Yeah. I agree with you. I put 69 as my C tier on the women's side. Pretty much the same thing, it would have been probably ranked higher had Agatha had an amazing day and done something crazy, which 612.5 at basically 63 is crazy. But within the 60, I mean, even within the 69 is still a great total, but it's not the spectacle you expect from Agatha. And I kind of get why she did it, but I also think if she gives herself time, she'll probably get a 10 times body weight total at 69 anyway if she stayed there. Like, give her a few years and she'll be there anyway. That might be a bit of a reach. But
that is a reach. That is a reach, because you're saying that she needs to total around about 690. And I was having a conversation. Yeah, I don't know, because I was having a conversation with one of my lifters, and she was saying, "Oh, why didn't she just not walk her?" And I'm like, if she weighs 66, all of a sudden she's got to add another 25 kilos onto her total. You're better off taking the acute cut and seeing what your chances are with it. But it didn't work.
No,
but
I do agree.
I think
there's just no point though.
Yeah, I think 63 to 65 is probably the region with where it's possible.
Yeah.
But it might also be something that in this current moment is out of reach for Agatha, because I just think the amount of kilos that's going to take away from you at that point is a little bit too much. And if it's doing this to somebody that literally powerlifts for their profession, it's just going to take a little bit more time to finally get there.
Yeah. I also think as well, is that just taking away productive time in training and meets that she can be having by, she's already said that she's moving back up, right? Her plan is she wants to do 84 next year. Obviously, she's not going to fill the 84s by next year, but why didn't she just sit at that 69 to 71-ish range, do it in the 69, get that 69 world title, and then she'd have less space to have to fill? obviously, I mean, look, she can do what she wants. She literally can do what she wants and win. Like, she could have won 3 weight classes of that total, basically. So can't really criticize it, but it just made it less entertaining viewing, I think. Carola in second. Like, Carola is always interesting to watch. Like, she's a really good lifter, and I think as soon as Agata's kind of gone out of the weight class, it's going to be Carola's show. And yeah, I think Chandler Babb winning from, I mean, technically she was like the C group because she was literally coming in with a 75 total, just because she hadn't qualified in that weight class within a certain amount of time, I think, because of her ban that she had. But she is a previous, is it 2-time world champion, I think, in that weight class, or 1 or 2. Like, it's not a surprise that she ended up on podium, but like you said, to do that from the B session, these other lifters that are fantastic lifters know what they then have to aim for to get on the podium. The fact that she managed to stay there is a really massive achievement, and it's going to be exciting to see what she does next year when she is in that prime group. And obviously Agata won't be there next year either, which will open up the class a little bit. I had a couple notes on the reffing as well. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I remember writing down at the time that the blue lights on squat openers were a bit mad. So I think one of them that I noted was Mark Jenner. So if you watch Marta squat, she's very, like, she's just very powerful as a lifter. Like, she's very explosive. And when she gets to the top of the squat, the bar obviously like wobbles a little bit on her back. Like, she's so explosive. And I remember watching her, I think it was her opener squat. She failed it. She literally got red lights, which were blue, for like soft lockout. And it was because her knees were essentially still bouncing from that momentum at the top. Had they waited 2 seconds to give her that rack command, it would have been a fine lift, but I don't think that was a fair call. And that's probably one of the main calls from Worlds that I would comment on, because obviously I'm not in the ref seat, but that to me was a little bit wild. So like, that is literally just how she squats. And she is so explosive that you just have to give it a second for the bar to settle. So that was one thing I did know. But she still had a great meet. I think massive shout out to, let me just load everyone up so I don't forget anyone. It was her, it was Annie. Was anyone else in that battle? Probably.
Celine Crum.
Oh yeah, of course. How did I forget Celine? Yeah, so Annie, Celine, Mark, they all had great days. And that again made it better viewing because it was just fun to see what they did. But I think knowing that they weren't going to be getting that podium spot, which to be fair, it's because they were also battling each other. It probably took away from them a little bit. But yeah, it just, again, it takes away from the viewing a little bit. But also, like, they all had really good days, and it's going to be exciting to see where the class is in the future without Agata there. Like, I think that will open the class up a lot, and we'll have more exciting battles next year if these names stay. But it just wasn't the most entertaining of battles this year. Purely, it was the Agata show, and Agata didn't even put on that much of a show.
Yeah, true. Who else you got in the suitor then?
So I have got the men's 59s in the suitor.
Correct.
I really thought we were going to disagree on most of these.
No, I think when it gets to the top, it might be different. But for now, it's like, I think everyone would agree. Because, so do you want to take the lead, or do you just want me to carry on with this?
You can carry on.
The 59s would have been great if Kassem Sand was healthy. Because all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, whilst he's in a league of his own, he's also going for the, like, what was a seemingly impenetrable record. It stood since the start of classic powerlifting. Like, it's been there since the start of classic powerlifting, pretty much, with Fedosienko. And I saw his opener on squat because I was looking at good lift ahead of time, and I was thinking, that's a bit odd. Like, why is that? Are they just going to, like, change it closer to the time so that nobody knows what he's doing? I was like, it's either that or he's injured. And he came out, and you're like, yeah, definitely injured, because he just looked tanked, and he picked up a hip issue a couple of weeks before and wasn't able to recover from it. So fingers crossed he's healthy by World Games, because that could give him the chance to go into Sheffield and could set up a really exciting battle with him and Ivan, if Ivan carries on his progress, and I'll come to him in a second. But if not, he will be there for the next year, from what he said in the 59s, and he will take the title then, unless he loses a lot of strength in a shell-like manner. But yeah, it's got to be said to Ivan as well. Really impressive performance. I think it was Manny that predicted Antoine in second. I would like to ask him what he was thinking there, because there was no indications that he'd have been better. But Ivan proved me right, and he's had a pretty meteoric rise over this last couple of years, and he had room for more in that performance, if you ask me. I think he cut down from 65, so I wasn't sure how good he'd look. But to see him get to that 95% mark for Sheffield with such a strong performance, with room in the tank, as I said, like, I think there was a good 5-10 kilos to spare. It'll be interesting to see where he goes with the rest of this year. He's got World Games in a couple of months, of course. I think he'll probably be a little bit down from this performance, because it's that tax of having to cut 6 kilos, perform, regain the weight, cut 6 kilos again, unless he goes in as a light 66, of course. But no, I'm really excited to
I
see him
have
at
a
Sheffield.
feeling he said he would. I think he said he's not going to cut, because I think he's just going to do it as a light 66. I think he said that on the recap King of the Left White Lights Media podcast.
Yeah, okay, that's good for him then, because I want him to come in good for Sheffield. So I think he's a lifter that, whilst as well, I think he did speak about going up, he still has potential in the 59s. And give him another year, I don't know how close he can get to Kassem or that world record, but it's not something that I think is completely out of the question with him. I think he's somebody that really needs to be watched over this next year, because he's been putting up strong performances, and most of his drops in total and comps have been because he's been picking up blue lights on squats for somehow getting his elbows onto his knees, which is a talent in itself. I don't think it should be punished. But yeah, he's always looked strong, and it's nice that he's finally had that competition where he's been able to put it all out there, and he's been duly rewarded with that Sheffield invitation. So yeah, really excited for him. But past that, don't really think there's much to say about this weight class.
Yeah, I basically just echo everything you've said. I'm really excited to see what Ivan does. I don't know if you've listened to it, and if anyone hasn't, please do. The King of the List White Lights Media podcast with him, Kasim Sand, and Shell. It was probably the most wholesome podcast I've ever listened to, which I didn't expect from that lineup. But Ivan just sounded so too humble almost, and basically Shell was basically being like, "You've put 30 kilos on your total since Euros, you can do it." Because I think he was basically saying, it was given the impression that if Waskar was there, he wouldn't have won. Which logic, looking at nominations, fair enough thinking that, but
I think Ivan would have beaten him. Because I think
this
Ivan
is kind of what they were pointing out.
Ivan matched he matched the world record deadlift because he didn't need to take the chip to get the invitation. I'm pretty sure that's correct anyway. I don't know how hot a take it is, but if Waskar was there, I don't think Waskar would have won. I think Ivan had it in him to beat him, especially with the spare kilos that he had. And I mean, that's kind of but you have to do the third attempt to find out how much room there is left. Yeah. I think he'd have been the stronger lifter on the day.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, or at least it would have been incredibly close, and we could have potentially had 2 59s at Sheffield, which would have been unreal after them. It was such a big storyline, Waskar even getting to Sheffield, to now have Ivan kind of, I don't want to say come out of nowhere, because he is very good in this class, and he's still young as well, so that's why he's making that progress. But I think on the preview show, we basically mentioned the fact that he's got such a big cut down to 59. We thought that was going to hinder him, which he even said on the podcast, I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering rightly, I do lose a lot of strength from that cut, but he's still strong enough to do well in the class. And I think that's the thing. If he gets to the point where his total's not progressing, fair enough, it's time to move up. But 637.5 as an under 59 is such a good total. And I'm really excited to see what he does at Sheffield. And I think it's kind of a breakout performance for him. I think he won Euros, didn't he? If I'm remembering rightly. He's got accolades under him. But to do this at Worlds, I'm very excited to see what he does. You got anyone else on the C list?
105s. The most entertaining thing about the 105s was 2 people bombing out. Because it was Corentin and then it was Anatoly. And this is where I was telling you before we started that I have some gripes for the temp selection and these things that make zero sense to me. Corentin, I mean, I've always thought that his start position on squats is questionable. I've never liked it. I've never understood how he got start commands because he already looks like he's so pushed over. And I've seen other people get held for being more upright. And it seems to be the context of the bar being so far down his back that makes his situation okay in the ref's eyes. And when his lifts were getting overturned or weren't getting overturned if they were two reds, I think the jury were actually saying that they weren't overturning them or were overturning them to bad lifts because of his start position and not because of his depth. And then finally, on the third attempt, the Blues were for his start position. That's what happened there. But the big thing for me is, and I would love to hear the rationale because I might be getting something wrong, but the fact that he bombed out makes me think that I'm right, is why would you open above a PR? It doesn't mean that all of a sudden you can just add like 10 kilos on each attempt. And it's clear that...
Wait, is this Anatoly?
This is Anatoly now.
Yeah.
And it's... Because as you look at the prognosis and you see that he's like clearly in first for the entire competition until deadlifts come around, and you're thinking this is really interesting, like he's not competed since last year's Worlds. It's going to be very exciting to see if actually he can bring a deadlift against Anthony McNaughton. But no, it's like it's past his top end. And I think what happens sometimes is people will open high with this weird belief that it's going to make their top end higher. And I don't think that you can just do that. Well, I mean, I know you can't do that, but I think a lot of people have that idea. It's like if I'm handling somebody in a competition, I go, "Why is my opener so low?" It's because that's not what you're going to end up lifting.
Yeah.
Luckily, what we can do is we can make two big jumps and end up where you're actually going to end up. Yeah. But there are some people that will open really high and then end up having to make the smallest of jumps in order to like actually make that a sustainable thing. So I don't get why that was a decision made by Anatoly. It surprises me that somebody so experienced thought that was a good idea. And to see him bomb out like that was a real shame because he was a podium threat. And yeah, the way it ended, it's not how I wanted to see it end, but it was a bad decision, and I don't think there's any other way around it. Anthony McNaughton, on the other hand, and this is why he's at the top of seat here, he is an absolute monster. 975 on what still seemed like quite an easy day. He will be capable of 1,000 at Sheffield, and he has to be considered as a Sheffield favourite because he is ridiculous. I want to know where his top end bench is because he's benching, what was it, like 250?
Something like that, yeah.
Something around there, but complete ease. His squat, he got called
250.5.
Yeah, on his squat, he got called on depth. On his second, came back, took it on his third. Again, it was an absolute breeze. And on deadlift, I think he was good for a lot more. I do know that there were like some people asking why did he end up taking his third. I think it's just because you don't know with Keenan, he could have been in reach. And it's just not a risk that you want to take if it's going to cost you a world title. So I would stand by Anthony with that decision to push it and just make sure it's out of reach of Keenan. Did it have to be that many kilos ahead? Maybe not, but again, it's like you just want to be sure. And then mention to Keenan as well, because he did have a very strong day, and it does get overshadowed by just how good Anthony McNaughton is. But still 10 kilos above the world record, which should have probably been pushed a while ago, should have been pushed at Sheffield by Ashton, but he had a bad pec. But yeah, he still cleared the world record and he still got that Sheffield invite. So it was a very strong top two, but I think we're at the end of like, it was a boring watch because it was clear who was going to win, but it did make it exciting how much the top two were pushing.
Yeah, I put this one in B tier. Basically, because it was just such a, like, I literally put on my notes, what the fuck did I just watch? Like, pretty much all the squats, all of deadlifts, I sat there with my jaw wide open because I don't understand how this is happening. Like, I wasn't that shocked that Coco bombed because Coco was always going to go up if he missed his lifts. And to be fair to him, he is clearly the strongest he's ever been. Like, he is so strong at the moment, and I really wanted him to have a good day. But exactly what you said, like, I've never been convinced by his squats. And actually, I think it was it 2-3 years ago when Panna bombed at Euros for the same thing. It was the start position and not being upright. And then a few days later, Coco competed, and I would say, and other people said this at the time as well, his start position was more questionable than Panna's was, because by Panna's third, he really did try and fix it. Whereas when Coco came out for his third, I think the bar was even lower than it was on the other 2 attempts, and he looked even more leant over on that third. It was just a matter of time before he got called for it. And I think now he just has to come away, fix his issues, obviously get used to a different bar position, which is going to take time, but he won't lose strength in that time. He is still like the strongest he's ever been. So he just needs to fix that, clean things up. And then I think he'll be an absolute threat. Because of Anthony McNaughton, which I'll go on to in a sec, probably not a threat for first, but he'll still be more of a threat than kind of ever before. And then Anatoly bombing, these are 2 people that I didn't want to see bomb as well. I want to point out, I really enjoy watching them both lift, and it was a really insane class. Like, Emil Norling is clearly back. Like, he's back to his old strength. I think he hit a squat PB. Like, Emil's kind of, since he left juniors and his first couple of years in the Open, hasn't really progressed too much. I guess he has other stuff taken priority, but it's really good to see him back. Like, I think there's nothing better than when a lift has been around a long time and they start to see that uptick in their performance again. So for Emil to be back, and I think he placed third in the end, didn't he? Is amazing anyway. And then had Coco and Anatoly both actually made a total, that battle would have been even more exciting. But yeah, so Anatoly bombing. So his deadlift was 7.5 below his best ever pull. So he pulled 352.5 in competition before, and he opened on 345. But I need to note that at last year's World Championship, he hit 340 and failed 347. He might have competed since then, because I don't think all of Ukraine's competitions obviously get registered on open powerlifting, because some stuff is left off of there. But kind of like you said, where would that much progress have come from? I would like to think there's a logical reason behind him picking that opener, because he is so experienced. He's a previous world champion. He's a fantastic lifter. But most lifters, if not all lifters, don't have that many heavy pulls in them. And Anatoly's never been a lifter to make massive jumps, where you see a Keenan or an Anthony taking 25 kilo jumps from their open to their second. Anatoly's more 10, 15 kilos normally, I think. It's
an opener. An opener of 345 suggests at least 365, and that's what I mean. It's don't open where you're going to end.
Yeah,
just
that's what I was about to say. He won't be. He's not a 370 puller, and I remember at the time just trying to work through scenarios where it made sense, and I was well, his squat was down on his best, and I think he got called for depth on his second, to be fair to him. But I remember 360 looked harder for him than normal. He's hit 370 before, world records multiple times, and I was well, maybe his squat's gone down, but his deadlift's kind of gone up a little bit, and maybe that's where these things are balanced out. But still, opening that close to your best ever pull it's literally what Benika did in the 84 plus a few years ago. And again, she's so experienced, everyone was I don't understand why you're doing that. And to be fair to Benika, she failed on technicalities, but Anatoly, it doesn't make sense. And I think that's where I put it as B tier as well, because I was you wouldn't expect it from people like this. And it did mean that deadlifts were exciting, because it was what the hell is happening? And obviously, anyone watching would have been rooting for him to get that last deadlift, I'm sure. But yeah, he didn't. And it was just very, very confusing. I also want to say, Anthony, like you said, he needs to be watched. He is definitely, he'll be one of my top picks for Sheffield as long as he's healthy. His total was insane. The world record total going in was 940. Him and Keenan both broke it. Keenan hit 950, Anthony 975.5. Emil was only 5 kilos off of it, which is also worth mentioning. But I think also shout out to Regan as well, who placed 4th. He hit 910, which is a junior world record total. To place 4th in a class like this as a junior is insane. And I think he did put up a bigger total than what maybe, at least what I predicted he probably would at this meet. I don't think it's much away from his best. I don't remember what his best total is, but there were very harsh judging calls in that meet as well, and like he hit quite a big squat and like he had a really good day. So I just want to shout that out. But again, it's the reason that he placed fourth, because the two top contenders for that podium battle bombed for silly reasons. Yes. But yeah, it was a really class. And I just think I've not seen people giving Anthony, let alone Keenan, who also deserves credit, but Anthony's not getting the credit he deserves, I don't think, because that session was such just a mess, for lack of a better word. Like, the whole session was a mess that did take away from what Anthony did. Like, he had an incredible meet. He only hit just below what he did at Nationals. And I would say, I could be completely wrong with this, but this is just going on memory, of all the Americans that came over, he probably had the best performance relative to what they did at Nationals, especially for the fact that he is a heavier lifter. Because one thing I was going to mention at some point in this episode, or like this, was I wonder if this is going to make powerlifting America move their Nationals. Because although America obviously won on team points and, you know, they've still had a lot of world champions out of it and podiums, whatever, a lot of their lifters did not show up at their best. And obviously at Worlds, you expect a little bit of a downtrend in your performance anyway, but there's such a short turnaround for so many of these lifters. I wonder if they'll want to move it. So it's a little bit further apart.
I do want to know the rationale, because it's a bit daft that it's like 2 months before. I think the way that we do it here, with it being pretty much as far away from Worlds as you can get, is good, because it lets you plan out a whole like swathe of time. But when you go into PA, where like you've already got most of the best in the world competing in that competition, you have to bring your very best in order to get through that. And then you have to do it again. I think it's a ridiculous idea. I don't know why it's done like that. And again, it's one of those things I've tried to rationalize, and I can't really see how they came to the conclusion that it's a good idea. But yeah, if they moved it, then we would see the Americans coming over and being even stronger. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. It's a daft decision.
Yeah. I'm intrigued to see, obviously, if they move it. I think they should, but I guess it also depends on... Well, actually, no, because I know with GB, I think they've changed the rules, whether it stays or not, that if you want to be on Team GB next year, you have to do Nationals regardless of if you're doing Sheffield. Like, that's one of the things in the selection criteria for Team GB, which I don't think is going to stay. I hope it doesn't stay, because it's a bit unfair, but at least we're, November, December for Nationals here, where... In America, you can use your Sheffield total. So you get people like Austin Perkins. I mean, Amanda did Nationals, which didn't need to. You get some of these, Meg didn't technically have to do Nationals either. They don't have to do both. So they do, because I think you want at least 3 months, at least 12 weeks between meets, right? Just to give yourself, you can have a little bit of an easier block straight after the meet. You can let your body weight sit a little bit heavier, at least for a few weeks, not be in a deficit if you're someone that cuts. Like, there's so many factors that go into it, as well as traveling internationally. I would like to see more of a space out for PA Nats, because I just think it will only benefit the American team. But then I wonder if they're going to see that the results worked. Their lifters had good days, they won. Does it matter in their eyes? Probably not.
I don't know. It's because there's the lifters that didn't win. We'll get to them, but it's like, if you didn't win, then you'd be the sort of person that's saying, all right, like, I'd want this to change. Or if you didn't have the day that you wanted, you'd want it to change. And they got max team points last year. They didn't this year. And I think they're obviously wanting to get max points as many times as they can. So yeah, it's hard to say. But I think there'll be a lot of push to move it, because if you've got your best lifters coming in not the best shape, then you'd want to change that as a federation.
Yeah. Also, just while we're on the 105s and we're speaking about Anthony, he did also out total the 120s, which I just think needs to be mentioned. Obviously, I don't want to say he wasn't in as close of a battle, because he was in a battle with Keenan, but I think, I at least thought it was pretty clear that Anthony, as long as nothing went terribly wrong, was stronger than Keenan, just based off Nationals. So as long as Anthony put up a relatively good day, he was pretty comfortably going to win. So the battle wasn't as close, which meant he could go a little bit higher on his attempts. Whereas obviously, if you're in a really close battle, it's common to see totals kind of drop a little bit. But he did out total the 120s, which I think is definitely worth mentioning. Do you have anyone else on the C tier?
No, I think I'll go up to B now.
All right. I'll start on the women's side of B. So my B for the men was 105. On the women's side, I've got two shout outs on this one. First one is 57s in the B tier.
B?
Mm-hmm.
Go on then.
So it could just be because, again, going in, I was pretty confident that Sarah Naldi was going to be ahead. I think she looked so strong going in, as long as, again, she didn't really have a mess up or anything. And I heard her say on King of the Lifts that she doesn't have to do an acute cut. She walks around in the class. It wasn't very likely she could have much of a downtrend in her performance. So I actually put in my notes that I think the battle in the class was a little bit overrated. It was good. Like, it's still B tier, it was still a good battle. But I think because people weren't completely healthy, like Jade going in, Jade was, she came second. She started a great day, but she wasn't at full healthy Jade levels. And if she was, the battle would have been closer. And Natalie also wasn't at full strength. If Natalie and Jade were both back to, even just back to previous numbers, like 100% healthy across all lifts, I think the battle would have been more exciting. But like, I'm pretty sure, I could be speaking out here, I'm pretty sure Jade's squat was down based on her best by quite a bit. So she hit, actually not too far off her best, but she hit the world record previously, hasn't she?
Yeah.
And yeah, I just think her deadlift was off a little bit based on what she's done in training before. I know obviously her third pull was for the win, so that would have made it look lower than it was. But basically, I don't think it was as close as people said. Don't get me wrong, as Jade and Joy both came out to pull for the win, I was on the edge of my seat and I was like, this is doable. Like, Joy is capable of pulling 240.5. Like, I'm pretty sure she pulled 240 a couple of years ago in a different class. And she got a blue light, I think, but she technically pulled it. It just wasn't quite to standard. So she is capable of that. And part of me thought that she might pull for the win. But I also wasn't surprised by the outcome. And I think as the whole meet went on, it was just becoming more and more clear that Sarah Naldi was going to win. It was still fun to watch. Like I say, it was still B tier, but I just don't think it was higher than that, if I'm being honest.
I think that the battle personally was a lot better than expected, just with some different faces. Because of course I didn't think that Jade was going to come in anywhere near her best. Natalie didn't come in near her best. I think that was the more like sure shout, but I wasn't really sure where Jade was. But it actually shocked me that she was in the position to pull for the win. And Jade is one of those weird examples where she was a lot closer in a sense than people think. Because on deadlifts, if she can get it off the floor, she gets the pull. Now, it looks as if she just couldn't get it off the floor, and that's awful. And Joy got closer. But the thing is, everyone fails at their sticking point. And if your sticking point isn't the floor, it's going to make it look a lot worse than the person that can't get the bar like up to the top of their thighs. So I think for both Jade and Joy to be in the position where they're pushing Sarah for the win, and Sarah missed her final pull as well, which I think is the only detractor, and it's why it ended up in A tier and not S tier. It was incredible, and I think the lifts that led to it as well, like Joy across the whole day, she was a spectacle of that class, I think, along with Sarah, because the squat, I remember watching it thinking, nah, 180 is not happening. Joy's squat is something else. The way that she can just fold into that position and then just good morning her way out, it had my jaw pretty much on the floor with that, because she is insane. Same with her bench, massive bench grind on her, and it's just again like really impressive that she was able to keep herself in the conversation for that top spot. When I was as well as you, I was pretty sure that Sarah was going to win. And I've got to say, actually, coming into the deadlifts, I wasn't so sure that she would, and I thought that my prediction might have been a tiny bit off. Similar's got to be said for Jade, all the way up to her second pull. Like, even her second pull, I was like, oh, you know what? This might be a really boring result. She might just win it again. It wouldn't be boring, knowing like what she's been through in this last year. But I thought, oh no, is she actually just going to take it again? Is she going to be like the Sheffield representative again? But I think for all of those three to be in this battle, and it actually came down to being really close, I think that made it a great watch. Then Bobby Butters in fourth. Just always love watching her. Her passion on the platform is unmatched. It's incredible. Natalie Richards is still a little bit off of her top strength. She's still got a little bit of a way to go, but it does make the conversation about this weight class next year really interesting, because once she's full strength and all four of these people are here battling it out, then you're talking about the spots of 1 down to 4th all being uncertain. Because there's no way you can pick between these 4 when they're at their full strength.
Yeah, which I think is also part of why I've put it down in B, because I was like, I know the potential of this battle, and obviously it wasn't quite that, but it was still a good watch, like we say, it was still a good watch, and I'm very excited for this class next year. I think it's good that Joy's back in the 57th. I think that's where she fits really nicely, and like you said, she had a really good day. It's unusual that she doesn't get called on depth, which is because of how she folds, not because she's cutting depth. So the fact that she got everything, she had an 8 for 9 day apart from that final pull. I think one thing else with Shad as well, where she wasn't on her full strength, is her bench had gone down a bit. I don't know what she benched at Sheffield. So she benched 100 at Worlds. At Sheffield, she benched 107.5. So if you give her best squat and her best bench back, she wouldn't have had to pull even, I think it'd have been like 220 something for that win. So it could have been closer, but it just lines us up for the future.
Yeah. I'm just excited to see what happens next year, because I think it'll be brilliant.
Who else do you have in B tier?
B tier. All of my B tier classes are female classes, and I think they're all pretty similar. So if you want, I can kind of like rattle them all off.
Go one at a time, just see where I'll put them as well.
Also true. At the bottom, I had the 47s. But I think I
disagreed on that one.
I don't know. It just it would have been more exciting if the French coaches were doing the right thing. That
adds to the excitement. You never know what they're going to do.
No, but it's there's they're going really aggressive, and it's you can justify it from if they get the number, then that's great. Why did they put in 102 on the second bench instead of 102.5? What's the rationale behind that? Why on the squat did they push for the chip when instead taking the extra 2.5 kilos is probably what would have made the difference between Heather getting that 212 and missing that 212. The only one that can be agreed on is the fact that the 172.5, Tiffany didn't have it, but it did look like it was on the technicality. Not technicality, but she had a technical failure. More than anything else. But it's the really odd decision making on both the squats and the bench that I think cost Tiffany, because the 102 is pointless. Really.
It's basically a reverse chip, isn't it? I think something just worth saying as well. A lot of people were saying about, not in this weight class, and I'll kind of explain it, but during the other weight class battles, everyone was like, they're not taking the chip, they're not taking the chip. And I can't remember who it was. Someone kind of put online, if you're the lighter lifter, you don't need the chip, because the other lifter is going to have to go up 2.5.
This is why I wanted to group this in with the 52s. And I'm going to say this now, but Megan Lee Smith taking the chip on her squat was completely pointless. Unless she wanted the world record, she didn't need it, because she was the lighter lifter, and you don't need to stack advantages. You only need a chip if you are the heavier lifter. Because if you're the lighter lifter, then you win on body weight. And you're working with the same 2.5 kilo increments. So she should have just gone up by 2.5. There was no reason for them to go up by more than that. And I did, in the moment, believe in Megan getting the 2.5 kilo jump. But then I saw that they put in the chip, and I didn't believe in that. And it's just, they are completely useless kilos in terms of that battle. And whilst Evie could have probably won anyway, her deadlift looked smooth enough, it was just a shame to see what I personally believe was just a bad decision with like picking up that chip, because if you are the lighter lifter, then you don't need it. It's slightly different in Tiffany's case because Heather has access to whatever chip she wants, because the deadlift before that was sat at 200. But
Heather was going to have to pull a record to win anyway, wasn't she? So she could have just loaded whatever she needed to win regardless, which I think is worth pointing out. But like with Tiffany, she could have just stacked the kilos on and just literally done, fair enough, going 102 for the second. She got 102 on her bench. Just go 103, 104. Like at that body weight, 2-3 kilos on bench is a big jump. Even for a bench that's in the hundreds, like that's a big jump. And yeah, it just wasn't necessary.
And the squat as well, because it's pushing for the chip there was pointless. Again, because it did look like it was out of her reach. Her second did look tough. It's just take the minimum increment, because if she did have that extra 2.5, then it's hard to tell. It was hard to tell with Joy's. It's hard to tell with Heather's if the kind of like windmilling of the bar is coming from a bit of a misgroove, because I actually expected the 212 to be easier. But it's
so
like,
I think with Heather, she says it's where she's got like double scoliosis in her spine, and I think it literally just, it's like when she squats, the bar's off balance. And I think it's the same thing with deadlifts, especially obviously as they get closer to top end, she can't maintain that straight bar position.
Yeah, but yeah, they were my big frustrations with the temp selection in the 47s and the 52s, was just with the pointless chip. There is one more that I've got, but that's coming later, and you might know what that is.
Let's cover the 47s a bit more first, because I put the 47s as S tier, because for the first time in a long time, there was actually like a really good battle in the 47s. And I mean, I say that, it was last year, am I thinking it, Jessica was there last year, wasn't she, with Tiff? And it was kind of a battle, but it wasn't this close. And Tiff had been putting up massive numbers in training into this one, but it's a very common thing with Tiff that the cut does tank her strength. But obviously she's always been far enough ahead that she hasn't had to be concerned over it. But Heather's been a 47 for such a long time. She was world champ last in 2019, and she's making good progress again. And we know the cut doesn't tank her in the same way. So it was going to be really close. And so I put it as S tier, because it did come down to that final pull. And I know you mentioned obviously the French attempt selection was questionable, which I do think with Tiffany, her strength does just suddenly drop off, and it most likely is because of that cut. So it's just harder to read on the day what's there. But the French handlers are so experienced at this point, they shouldn't be making silly errors. Like, they have battles at Worlds in the French team every single year, at Euros every single year. So it's just, but then I guess they're aggressive, and Coco is a perfect example of this. The French like to be aggressive with their attempt selection. They are there to do a job, and they are there to hit the biggest total possible. And it's literally roll the dice if it's going to go or not. But yeah, I put that one as S tier just because I think the battle between her and Heather was so good. Also, shout out to Vicky, who came third, because last year she did bomb on bench, and this year she got all three in, had a really good day, and hit 412.5, which someone, I don't know if they said on commentary, I think Vicky actually hit similar to that not long before in a like a local meet or something. And I didn't realize this when we did the preview show, but I think Vicky is clearly trending upwards. Potentially next year, obviously depending if Jessica goes as well and she's back, Vicky, if Tiff stays 47, I don't know if she will. I think she's doing well games, so she might get out of the light 52, and hopefully she has a really good performance and it maybe convinces her to.
Would she be doing world games?
I think so. I think the French series was like a high honour, so I think it's quite a big thing for the French team.
Yeah, I think you said about Vicky doing world games, unless I just missed
out. No, I'm not sure about Vicky. I don't think, no, she wouldn't, because she bombed out at Worlds last year. Yeah. But no, I meant Tiff. So I think if Tiff does World Games and she does it as a light 52, which I don't know if she will, I feel like she's so proud that she'll just cut and prove a point as a 47. But if she does it as a light 52 and has a really good performance, we could see. I think if she gives herself a year, maybe 18 months to grow into the 52s, she can be in contention. She's hit like 440 in training, 450 even in training, I think, weighing like 50 kilos. So give her, she's still young, she could be a really competitive 52 if she just gives herself a bit of time, but we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, did anything happen between Heather and Tiff as well? Because I've been watching Heather's like Instagram stories, and it seems as if something happened in the warm-up room at Worlds. But I don't know anything about it. I'm just curious.
I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. You did just remind me as well about Jad in the warm-up room, and on the day, I want to just mention Jad. So she placed second in the 57s. She literally passed out like multiple times throughout the session, and she still came. I think, did she pass out
Passed out after
her
third
second
squat.
squat? Third squat.
Yeah.
So that's probably also where bench took a little bit of a hit. But I think someone said she also passed out before that as well. So I don't know what was going on with Jad, obviously, and obviously really hope she's okay. She still placed second with all of that going on as well, which I think is also worth highlighting, like how good of it. Like she literally still came out and hit like probably planned numbers or close to planned numbers, when she was obviously not feeling great. I don't know if it was the heat in the venue or something else was going on, but that's also definitely worth just highlighting, like how good and strong Jad is, like mentally as well as obviously physically with her total.
Yeah.
Did you want to cover the 52s? So we obviously started speaking about them slightly.
That was my.
I put them as A tier. Where did you say you put them?
I had them in the middle of B, because at the end it seemed really exciting, but you knew that Evie was just going to come out and pull what she needed. But it was really nice, and I think this was one of my predictions on the preview show. But I said about like Megan being able to push Evie, and like we don't know what would have happened if she had that extra 2.5. Do you still think that was just a strange decision by the New Zealand coach and staff? But yeah, it was tight. I think Evie's starting to think about going back up again as well.
Yeah.
I think she's starting to find that being a 52 is unsustainable, and like she's not making the progress that she thought she'd be making. Like people thought she'd be around the 500 mark by now, but the squat not showing up on the day. I think the bench was pretty much matching. The deadlift looked promising. I think she probably does have a world record pull in there, but it's probably just not enough to make that ground up to 500 that she wants to make. And with Megan still growing as well, it's probably that sort of time where like just get out while you're a world champion, because I think next year it could end differently if Megan continues to trend in the way that she does. And it was awesome to see her actually pull into first on her final pull. But yeah, as I said, it's like you knew it was going to be Evie that won it on the day.
Yeah, so I think Evie's final pull was obviously pretty comfortable. And Evie is a big deadlifter, and I think we said on the preview shows, like even if it's close, Evie's going to have the final say. So bets were on Evie winning, and obviously she did. But yeah, I think I could be remembering wrong. Obviously, don't quote me on this, but I think Evie basically said around this time last year she was kind of ready to move up again, but because of World Games qualification, she had to wait if she wanted to do World Games, because she's qualified in the 42 class. She'd have to wait until after World Games. So I don't know if she'll go up in time for Sheffield or if she'll do one last run out at Sheffield as a 52. But yeah, I think it probably is time for her to move up, because she's at that point where her numbers in training aren't being replicated on the platform. And she didn't have the best day at Sheffield. She also then didn't have the best meet at Worlds. And she didn't have, it doesn't look like she had bad training going into either of those. It was literally just she didn't show up on the day, which is likely to indicate it was to do with the cut. I think she said they trialed sitting a little bit heavier and cutting more this time as well, and that obviously doesn't work. I'm sure there's still ways they can tweak it, but it's almost like, is it worth it at this point? Because one thing I really love about Evie is she's made it very clear all along that, you know, she wants to just be the biggest, strongest version of herself, and cutting down was obviously strategic. I think Jason, her coach, suggested to her that she could potentially win Sheffield if she cut to 52, whereas if she went as a 57 in the first Sheffield, she probably wasn't looking at a very high finish at all. So it made sense. And obviously she won the first Sheffield, like it completely made sense to move down. But she's kind of made it clear that she doesn't want to just stay there and limit herself. Like she wants to be big and strong. So I think moving up would make sense. And kind of what you said, like Megan Lee Smith did push Evie. And I think next year, Megan's still progressing really well. It could be the case of, you know, if Evie does one more year as a 52, she might lose her title and then be forced to move up. The reason I put this one as an A tier is also because I think the battle for third was really interesting, and just it was really nice to see these other lifters doing really well. Like, I'm a big fan of like Noemi Alabert. She looked really strong for the first time in a while. Like, she looks like her strength is really on an uptick again. And I don't know what's been going on, but she's just not performed to her kind of old standards for a while, and she's kind of back, which is exciting. Obviously, Plindeckers came third. She had a good day, and yeah, it was just a really exciting class to watch. Like, record squats from Bliss as well. She hit one on a second and a third. And yeah, I think overall class was good. And also, I wanted to give a mention to the B group in the 52s. I didn't watch all the B groups. I usually would, but just with my work schedule this time, I couldn't. But the B group for the 52s, I wanted to watch because Leah Lucas was in there, and she's recently cut down. And had she been in the A group, I think she would have been contender for podium or very close to podium. But the B group literally battled as if they were the A group. Like, they were, I can't remember which other lifter it was, and I hate that I can't remember. But there was another lifter in Leah. They were battling it so much as if it was literally for the world title. And it was the most exciting B group I've watched in a really long time.
Trying to see if I didn't watch it, to be fair. Trying to see if any names stand out. Yeah, is that everything that you have on the 52s? I think I've said everything.
Yeah, I think that's it for the 52s. I didn't have tons of notes, especially from the start of the week.
Yeah, I've got one more for B.
I've still got one more for B as well. I'll let you go first.
You go for it.
All right. So in the B group, or the B tier, I have got 84 plus.
Ooh.
I didn't think you were going to agree on that one. No, I really enjoyed watching it. Obviously, I always love watching the 84 plus, and I think the last few years it has been the closest battle, and it was still a close battle. But I think for me, as soon as Sunita missed her third squat, I kind of didn't think she was going to win. And it was still really close. Like, it came down to deadlifts. And I don't think Brittany was necessarily her strongest on deadlifts. But I mean, Brittany squatted 295, which is crazy. Like, Brittany's always had a good squat. She's a very well-rounded lifter. But 295, and that's probably the hardest I've seen her work on a squat from what I can remember.
That squat was incredible.
It was, and her second wasn't easy. And I think she took a 10-kilo jump, and she's just made it happen. And I always trust their attempt selection, just because I think her and Bryce, like her coach, they have a really good, obviously, relationship, coach-client, and like they can always pick her numbers really well. Like, I never watched them put numbers in. I think, why are you taking that jump? Coming out of her third squat was probably the most nervous I've been as a Brittany fan watching her come out. Because I'm like, that's a big jump, and her second wasn't too quick, but she got it, and it moved really well. She had a big bench, and then deadlift, she broke the world record, but she didn't keep the world record because Natalie Lale went home with that, which isn't a surprise to anyone that follows Natalie. But yeah, basically, I put this one as C tier because was it C tier?
B
tier because Sunita's deadlift isn't reliable, and I think there's been a couple of meets in a row now, Sheffield and this meet, where I can't remember how she got on with Euros with her deadlift, but I'm not convinced by Sunita's lockout all the time, and I don't like this because I do think it is just to do with how she's built, and it's always a thing with the 120 plus and the 84 plus that you do have to be a little bit more lenient in terms of lockout, I think, because depending on how they're built and how they carry that mass is going to impact their deadlift lockout. But I just think Brittany's got such a big deadlift that as soon as Brittany squatted that close to 300, Sunita missed 323. I kind of just thought Brittany will pull whatever she needs and she'll make it happen. And I think Brittany's a 3-time world champion after this. And I do think she's so underrated for how good she is. And I don't know if it's just because, although she's got a phenomenal deadlift, she's very well-rounded. And like Natalie Lale, I think, gets a lot of the credit for deadlift, obviously, because she is the bigger puller of the two. That I think people forget how good Brittany is. Like, she hit the world record total, which I think it's kind of been Sunita's show for a while. But Brittany's never far behind. And I don't think people realise that. Where now
it's always been the Sunita show because it's like that. As soon as the 300 plus squat was in conversation, why would you pay attention to the person that's not squatting 300? Why would you pay attention to the person with a well-rounded toe? You'd always look at the person that's got that like showcase lift. And Brittany has always been close enough. There's a reason why Brittany kept on going to Sheffield. But it's, I think again, I'm pretty sure I predicted it, that Brittany was coming in at her strongest and that she would at least push Sunita. And if Sunita missed, all Brittany had to do was capitalise, and that's what she did. And by the end of it, didn't really feel that close. Sunita did the sensible thing with, I think she opened quite light on deadlifts so that she could secure a total and then start pushing at Brittany. But yeah, in the end, as you said, like as soon as Sunita missed that squat, with Brittany coming in that strong, it was Brittany's day, and it always felt like it was going to be that way. She just had to secure it on the deadlifts, which she did.
I think it's also worth mentioning as well. I've just realised I remember thinking at the time that was a 7-woman flight for the 84 plus. Now we were obviously saying with the 120 plus men how quick of a turnaround it is for people of that body weight with those loads. The women still performed, like really still performed, like it compared to what I was predicting a lot of them to come out at. They've kind of hit what I would have expected. So for them to have adapted to the day that well, I think also has to be mentioned. But yeah, the 84 plus women is always exciting to watch. I just think because Sunita didn't hit that third squat, and obviously Brittany hit such a big squat for her as well. It just took away from the battle for me. I think I'd have been shocked if Sunita had managed to win after that.
Yeah,
the only thing is what you predicted.
Yeah, and it did feel like a done deal once that squat was done. Because, yeah, it's like if you're squatting 290 flat, that's the second female to be crossing the 300 barrier soon. And she will probably get that at Sheffield. And that, again, the grind on that 295 was incredible. Because it looked as if she was about to lose it, but she managed to get herself back underneath it and get it up. And yeah, it was in that moment that, like, when I was watching it, I was like, I know that she's going to win this today. You just know when it's a lifter's day sometimes. So, yeah, and I'm really happy to see Brittany come back and do so well because I know that she's had a difficult year, or like quite a difficult period of time. So to see it get topped off with like such a big victory, yeah, I'm really excited to see her at Sheffield, and she does currently hold the total world record as well.
Yeah, and I feel like she's so consistent as well that I do think she'll still hit, even if it's 2.5 world record total. I think she'll find a way to get a world record total again next year. And obviously, I really hope she does. Like, I'm a big Brittany fan. Like, I think just as a lifter and as a person, like, she's great. And I really want her to do well at Sheffield next year. And I just think it'd be really cool to see what she does. I wonder if Sunita will get one of the wildcard invites. Like, obviously, we can at a different point, but it's always good to have, I think, 284 plus at Sheffield, purely for the big loads being on the bar and stuff. But we'll just see.
You've made want to go on a very, very quick side quest to think who else is going to get taken. I would want to see, just seeing as we're here, I think they've got to take at least one of the 57s.
Yeah, agreed.
Whether it's Jad or Joy, I'm not sure. I'd personally want to see Joy. But I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Jad. And then I think Tiffany's already had the invite. She got one of the like second, third, or fourth round ones. And the other person,
Megan Lee Smith could be interesting.
No, it wouldn't. Because what's the name would win again? I do have somebody, but I'll tell you about them later.
Okay.
But yeah, I think the difficulty, it's got to be somebody that's got a. Don't tell me I'm contradicting myself here. No, yeah, it's got to be somebody that's got to have a deadlift on them. It's got to be somebody that can like have that X factor to them, and I don't think Megan has that. She's very much a subtotal lifter.
The well-rounded lifters at Sheffield aren't as much of a spectacle. Like someone like a Sunita, I think, because she has that world record squat, guaranteed, would make more sense, I think. But anyway, we're not talking about Sheffield. We're talking about Worlds.
I will be mentioning my other person in a bit, though. I do have a good shout for the other person, but yeah, I've got nothing. Got nothing more for that class. You want me to do my last B tier one?
I was about to say, do your last B tier, yeah.
63s. I think the way that you put it S tier, haven't you?
Yes, I have put it S tier.
crazy. No, the way that Megan Scanlon just didn't turn up was just a shame, because I watched the Presser Powerlifting prediction video straight after we did the preview show, and I was like, I've completely missed out Chiara Bernardi's progress. And after that, I was thinking, actually, I think she could win it.
I did the exact same thing. I hadn't seen any of her posts or anything.
And if she'd have got any more than just her first squat, she'd have won as well. So that's a bit of a shame in itself. But yeah, I think with Megan Scanlon not turning up to where like we'd expect it to be, that was a bit of a shame. It did detract a little bit from it, but Alba Bostrom's also finally proven like that she is world champion caliber, and that's been something that's been in the conversation for probably about a year now, since that Junior Worlds performance, and there were like question marks as to why she even got invited to Sheffield in the first place. But I think like retrospectively, she's been able to justify like why she got there and why she should be in these conversations. But I mean, I primarily want to hear what you have to say. If you're rating this class so highly, I think you're going to have some really good insight on it. So
I don't think I've got tons of really good insight. I think it was kind of the fact that it didn't look like any of them were going to have the best day, which obviously I always want people to have their best day because it makes it really like cool to see what they do. But where you said, obviously, if Chiara got more than her opening squat, she probably would have won. But at the same time, like, I think what I really enjoyed with Alba, like Alba's super young, like she's what, 24? I think it's her first year at the Open. She's 23, 24. Her opening squat, I actually watched it back earlier. Her opening squat looked close to top end. Like I don't know what she did, some kind of misgroove, nerves, something. Her opening squat was so difficult that she only took a small 5 kilo jump. And then she just rallied back and managed to still come out and squat 197.5 on her third. Bench, like, I think Meg just didn't have the best day. And I know Meg is usually the consistent lifter, which is why I was pretty confident putting her in first in my predictions. Meg is a big advocate for competing often. And obviously she did PA Nats a few weeks before. And she put up a world record total, obviously unofficially. And then she couldn't replicate it, which normally on the international stage, Meg is consistent and it doesn't usually impact her too much. But it's making me question if maybe she needs to stop thinking that you can compete really often. I'm not really sure. I don't know what happened. I haven't really seen her say much either. I haven't really looked yet, or I don't know if she's on any podcast or anything. But even Meg's bench didn't really turn up. Like Meg was, I'm pretty sure she was hitting well over 140 in training, like or in the 140s regularly, comfortably. But what I will say with Meg, so I think she missed her opening bench on elbow depth. I think I could be wrong remembering that. But if that was what happened, I remember saying in another group chat, like, I've been questioning her elbow depth in her training videos now for a while, because it looks like she's almost like her sink is obviously so second nature and so natural to her now. And she's not been called on it before, but it's almost like she's getting a bit too complacent with it. And it's just slowly getting higher and higher, which she then had to obviously adjust on the day. And she managed to, and she came out and she benched 137.5 in the end of her third, which is just 2.5 above her second and what her planned opener was. But obviously Meg didn't show up on the day, but it just, I think because of that, it makes the battle almost more exciting because you just don't really know. Like my preconceptions of what was going to happen were just completely off. And also I am a massive fan of all three of these lifters, but I'm a huge Alba fan. And like I've had her on the podcast before, like she's so like just great. And I love the way she approaches her training and stuff. I was just really happy to see her also win. It made it even more exciting for me, obviously from like my own bias and stuff. But yeah, I think it's just really cool to see how strong the 63s are. And I think for a while, like it was the Leah show, and then I think it was Leah and Corolla before they kind of changed weight classes. And it's just really cool to see that there's such close battles, even without like Leah in there anymore. And obviously Meg was the one that people were like expecting to win and to do really well. And I think like Chiara, we both said like we underestimated her, and I don't know, I just thought it was an exciting battle because you didn't really know what was going to happen. And it wasn't until Alba's final pull, and then we had to wait for Chiara to come out anyway. So yeah, it was just exciting it came down to those last deadlifts.
Yeah, I just don't think it compared, because it was a good battle. I just don't think it compared to like the very, very top battles at Worlds, because it was like the two people that were in that slight underdog position that ended up going for it, and it's like the top dog was already out the race, and that just feels
To
like a
be fair,
weird.
there was another class that I wanted to put as S tier, but I didn't want to have 3 in the S tier. So I wonder if that'll be the class that you put. Well, it will, because we're not spoken about it
Yeah,
yet.
I mean, I've got 3 S tier, and we haven't said any of them yet. But do you want to hear my final A tier one?
Yes.
120s. It
Okay.
would have been
I put 120 as S tier.
Oh, but they nearly all missed their final deadlifts, and I think it's
That's where the excitement is.
I know it is, but it's like it's exciting when they're hitting them and things are changing. The only time that I think has been exciting where loads of people missed was last year's 66ers. That was intriguing, but it's way more exciting when people's hands are forced. And a lot of people are just doing more than they needed to do to win.
Yeah.
Like Joe McDonald did not need to go to 385. He could have taken less and still put himself in provisional first. Because all it's doing
I
is
think
go on.
the reason that this is an S tier class is purely because of Joseph McDonald, because he was just so fun to watch.
His singlet's incredible.
I was going to say, it wasn't until was it Amelia pointed it out on commentary that it was the McDonald's cheeseburger, like it was like a Big Mac or something on his singlet, like it was so funny. But I didn't look into him before, and that was my bad, because I should have done more research for the preview and stuff. But I didn't even realize until kind of halfway through the meet exactly where he was. So I think I was watching this one back after it happened. So I didn't have the live score sheet up or anything. So I was literally just going by what was in front of me on the screen, on the live stream. And I didn't quite realize how kind of close he was. And then, I think it was that final deadlift. They just took a way bigger jump than necessary. And really, he could have probably walked away second, if not first, had they taken a more sensible attempt selection on that third deadlift. But I think he was just happy to be there.
No, he wanted to win. He had, I think he didn't like the fact that he was being overlooked. And I'm trying to remember where I heard this from, but he'd been overlooked in a lot of different like conversations about who was going to win the 120s. He had a lot of fire in terms of wanting to win it. And I think if you have a look at his Instagram, you'd find a lot of the stuff that's kind of like alluding to that. But yeah, it's one of those situations. It's just pull into first, do something you can do and see what happens. Because I think it's from where I see it, but Etienne's deadlifts always look a little bit on the edge to me, but I'm not in the ref seats. We don't see them from side on. They might be really good from the side, and they probably are because they consistently get all white lights. You don't even know if he's going to hit. You don't know if Nonso's going to hit. He didn't. So it's like just put yourself there and see what everybody else does, because everybody apart from Etienne ended up missing. And like when you look at it retrospectively, you're probably thinking, why didn't we just do the sensible thing and just get ourselves into the lead? But I think, it was just a bit of a shame, because it's like, I don't think Nonso had a squat, but I also wish that he had the ability to. I also wish, I know you're going to jump on this like a piranha because you love hating on Nonso for some reason.
I want him to do really well, and I need to just say this now. Like, I genuinely am a fan, and I want him to do really well, but I seem to just shit on him every time we talk about him on this podcast.
Just say something nice. But it's like his final shot, I don't think he had it, but it would have been nice to see him attempt it, because I can see a world where he'd have been able to muscle that up. Like the bar hadn't started dipping, and he just started trying to get himself into that position to grind it out. And he'd have probably missed it. But it just brings out that annoying conversation where it's like, oh, he didn't actually get to do this, and he just got robbed. And a lot of people are going to say that he got robbed, and it's going to take away from Etienne's win. And I think to an extent that will overshadow it. You were a little bit closer with the dev shout than I was comfortable with, but at the end of the day, he didn't win, so don't look too proud. We've been through Joe McDonald, and then like back to Nonso on his final deadlift, or actually all the way through deadlifts. I think you can tell when he's going to have a good day, and you can tell when he's not, and it's based on how fast that opener moves off the floor. But I remember I was watching it and I just messaged one of my mates. I just said, Nonso misses his final pull. It seemed really clear because he was just a little bit slower than I'm used to seeing him. And when he's looking like that, I do start to think, yeah, his top end's probably around about it's like 395-ish where it was, because you are right in that he fails quite quick. He's good until he's not. But yeah, it's a shame that the final squat did get taken away from him. I also thought that a 7.5 kilo jump was a sensible one because he wasn't looking too sharp in general on the day. His bench was looking great, but I don't think that his squat or his deadlift were quite where he'd have wanted them to be. And to give the winner his credits as well, Etienne did look really strong. And he would have been even more clear if he was able to pick up the kilos on his final squat. But yeah, he had a brilliant day, and for Lebanon to get that international representation as well and to make it to Sheffield is a huge moment. So congratulations to him.
Yeah. I don't think we spoke about him enough on the preview, to be fair. I think Manny might have spoken about him a bit more than what we did, potentially. But yeah, Etienne had he very deserved win. I'm excited to see what he does at Sheffield as well. I think talking about Nonso, firstly, I will say something very nice here in that the way, obviously, they left that, they could have taken that third squat again. They didn't, which I think was absolutely the right call. Like, he needs to have that energy for his deadlifts. It was a pretty quick session. It makes sense. But also the way he rallied back and clearly didn't really let it bother him for the rest of the session. Like his bench, he hit a PB on bench, he hit 217, and I can't remember exactly how it moved, but to PB his bench on the world stage is already a good thing. Like his bench, I think they joked about it, didn't they, on the Sabado podcast they all did together, that, you know, he needs his bench up if he's going to be in the contention, and it's obviously going up. Yeah. And I think with his deadlift, to be fair, like they obviously just perfecting it still, because he hit 405 pretty comfortably a block out, and obviously on comp play things are different anyway. But I mentioned on the preview show, like it's such a balancing act of lifting heavy enough in your prep for comp that you're conditioned for those loads and you're ready for them, but not heavy enough to potentially take away from your pull, because it's not, people can't pull heavy frequently most of the time, and I wonder if that was potentially part of it as well. But we know he can pull. He's pulled 400 in comp before, and it's literally and I know next year that why has my mind just gone blank? Rondell, I can't remember what his name. Rondell will be back next year most likely, which means the chances of Nonso winning next year are probably pretty slim, and Bob will probably be back too. But Nonso there is no reason he can't be a world champion at some point in the next few years. He just needs more time, and he needs to just keep perfecting what they're doing and just make sure he keeps making progress, which is exactly what he's doing. So that's my nice things about Nonso there. But no, I think, and there's still a chance he'll get a wild card for Sheffield as well. I don't know if he will. I really don't. I don't know how they're going to pick them.
What if Josh gets the world record at juniors?
I think it's not going to work like this, but obviously Nonso is a bigger name because he's been on the open stage a bit more. And Josh, I mean, in the UK, Josh is definitely a big name now, or like at least he's becoming a big name. If he breaks that world record, which I think he's absolutely capable of, then I would love him to go to Sheffield. But I also think it'll be more exciting and fun, not just to watch, but also for them if they're there together. Imagine it, because they're both SBD athletes, right?
I was having a conversation with Josh. Like I asked him a couple of weeks ago. I was like, "Have you considered that if Nonso wins, that you could get a wild card invite to Sheffield?" No, I'm not going to say anything because he's still got his comp coming up. But like he's floated the numbers past me, and it all makes sense. It's just a shame now that. And it's not a shame that Etienne's won, but it's like it does probably take that opportunity off the table with Nonso falling quite far behind the world record. It's granted after a subpar meet, like maybe he could still lean on his Euros performance for that. But I would absolutely love for them to both cross paths. It would either be for the first or the second time. They might do it. They probably do open that together. But I'd love to see that battle finally happen at Sheffield. But it's just a case of like, are there enough wild card invites available? Because if Kassem makes it to World Games and is healthy, I'd like to think that he probably gets one. They might set up a rematch for the 83s with inviting Ade back because Duran's got in as I think it was like the best lifter that didn't meet like a set of criteria. There's of course like Gustav, who will probably be in the conversation for a wild card. I think the 105s are saturated enough. I think there's 3 of them.
Maybe they'll just bring Anatolian Coco just for
Yeah. But
I just want to say quickly before we move on from the 120s, because obviously we've got those classes to cover in a sec. Devin obviously had a great day. I wanted him to win, I'm not going to lie, because I do think this is probably, I don't want to say it's his only chance, because he is a great lifter and he can still make good progress and stuff. But obviously with Bob coming back after kind of going dark, who knows where Bob's going to be next year. But like Marcellus has kind of hinted that he is making the progress they want. So this was kind of Devin's best chance at Sheffield, I think. Hopefully I'm wrong with that, and I do hope he comes back and obviously keeps progressing and potentially gets there in the future. Because like I'm a fan of him anyway. And like, I mean, his world record bench was insane. But also I really want to shout out Mo. He placed 5th, and I really enjoy watching Mo compete. And I think now he's not cutting, it's less frustrating because there's not the cramping and stuff to deal with. Obviously his final deadlift was called for soft lockout, I think. But it was a questionable call. I've always thought his lockouts look iffy, but I think I'm quite a harsh ref apparently. So
I agree with you. I think they're a little bit dodgy.
To be fair, other people have said the same to me as well. We've been talking about the results. So he's already posted that it's something he's going to work on making more convincing, which I think is the right attitude to have. But Mo, I think he's still growing into the class. He weighed 116. Like he's not in a rush, which I like about Mo. Like as far as I can tell from what he posts and how he talks, like he's just slowly filling the class, gaining good mass, and just taking his time to get there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he does in the future. Basically, is what I want to say, and that he had a really good meet. And it's a shame about the final pull, but I just think it's going to make him a better lifter anyway, just because of the attitude that he has.
Yeah.
Was that all your notes on the 120s?
Yeah. We only have 3 weight classes to go, and it sounds like they could all be in the end. Yeah. Oh God.
Well, 2 of them are in my A tier. One of them I did want to put in the S tier. I'll say the one that I wanted to put in my S tier first.
Why don't you go with the one that's concrete A tier first?
Okay, we'll go concrete A tier, but you're going to strongly disagree. And I knew you were going to disagree on this one. I put the 83s as A tier.
They were at the bottom of my S tier, so I can see where you're coming from. Anyway, go for it.
Mostly because it played out kind of what I thought it would. I think I ranked Duran's 3rd, and I did say I don't know if he'll make the podium at the end of the women's preview. I'm glad I was wrong with that. I'm genuinely glad I was wrong with that. And I think I even said that on the preview. Like, I want Duran to do well. Like, I like to root for the lifters that have kind of been around for the longest, because I think it just shows how much that hard work over a long period of time is the key. And I think Meg Scanlon's a perfect example. I think Duran's is a perfect example. There's so many people, even like Austin Perkins, he's been around for a lot longer than I think people realise. But yeah, so the 83s I put as A tier because I thought it was pretty obvious that Joe was going to win. And this is going to make me sound like an Ade hater, and I'm not, because again, I want the GB lifters to do really well. Like, I'm a fan of him, and I'm looking forward to the day that he does go 9 for 9 and he hits his final squat, he hits his final pull and has a really good day. But we're just yet to see it. And I just think it was quite obvious Joe was going to win. And don't get me wrong, I think on the podcast they were saying that people were like, Joe, why did you push the record so high that you didn't need to save it for Sheffield? But Joe did need to push the record, because you never know with Ade's final pull. Like, it still moved. And I think he pass out like halfway up his second pull. Ade,
yeah,
so,
he did on both pulls.
Yeah, which, fair enough, that's probably going to impact whether or not you're going to get it. But I just think it was going to be Joe all along, and I think I was very confident in that. I will say, I mean, I know Joe said that he got sick a couple of weeks out, which will have impacted obviously everything. And I think he posted his last like heavy-ish training like a week or so out. And I remember sending it to a couple of people being like, oh, he's not actually looking as strong as I expected. But he then also said he'd been sick. But he came out a week early. So travel he can't use as an excuse. He said it didn't impact him. He ended up in like a calorie surplus. I think he did a gut cut, but he was still eating more calories because his body weight was quite light after being unwell. And he was sleeping more than ever the week of the meet. So in theory, he should have come in super strong, but he was still down on his performance at nationals, which isn't a surprise, obviously. Like, 1, it was a battle, he had to be more sensible, and 2, he was sick or whatever. But this is another example of where I just think PA Nats is way too close to Worlds, and I think he's a really good example of that. And like they should move it, as we already kind of spoke about. Anyway, I think Joe had to take that final pull, and like the attempt selection for him was great the whole way across. And I think I don't remember what podcast it was. It might have even been King of the Lists. Someone was saying that they weren't sure what Joe's attempt selection would be like because his coach was handling him, and his coach isn't a powerlifting coach. He's like training to be a brain surgeon. So they were like, that's different to being a powerlifter. Like, yeah, you're smart, but you're not a powerlifting coach. But obviously, when you know how to play the game, you know how to play the game. He knows how to read Joe's lifts. They made really good attempt selection. Joe was clearly going to win, I think. And then Durin's, I just think he just focused on himself. His third squat was a shame that he didn't get it. I thought it was the right call. It looked high to me. And he tempoed it, which he used to always do, I think, didn't he? Like way back, like I think before he went into heels, but like on his third squat, he just randomly tempo it and then fail it. I don't know if it was like a nerves thing, a pressure thing, or what, but he failed that third squat. But I think that was the right call in terms of the refs, so that kind of fair enough. Failed his third bench as well, but he still put up 80.57.5, which I think was a slight total PB.
I don't think his butt actually came off the bench there.
I can't remember without watching it back, but I think I did think that. I think it was still slightly in contact.
There wasn't like
a clear
uninterrupted daylight, but it's at the same time, it's like where it's coming off that much. It's, as the jury, you're probably not wanting to overturn it because there's like, it's not like 100% clear and obvious, which I think it has to be. But yeah, if you'd picked up the kilos on his subtotal, he probably was in range where he could have pulled for the win if Joe and Ade were then to both go and miss.
A little bit too much, yeah.
But
I think I'm happy in the sense, like I kind of said, didn't I? I wouldn't be surprised if Durins didn't end up on the podium because I think someone like Tim, if he's healthy, which he wasn't fully healthy going in, to be fair, they said that on King of the List like the day after we filmed ours. But had Tim been healthy or like had Enna's subtotal shown up, like you don't really know. And there's a lot of names in here that might have been, just working in the background. Like, there's a lot of big names that have competed at Worlds loads of times that you don't really know. I'm really glad I was wrong and that he did play second. I think Durins is very good at just focusing on himself. Like he's not the bigger puller. He needs to just do his thing, kind of just go through it and just see kind of where his total lands, part of the best total that he can. He hit a 5 kilo total PB and he wasn't far away from hitting more than that, which I think on a world stage is already a massive achievement. And then obviously Ade placed in third, which I wasn't too surprised by because he was always going to pull for the win, which I think when we did the preview, I probably should have put more kind of thought into that side of it and like the attempt selection side. His second pull, I know you've mentioned this as well, I think in your notes, like he should have really loaded 370 for his second pull because it would have put him in first ahead of Joe, with Joe still to come out and pull his third. But sounds like on King of the Lifts that they were basically just saying we just went with the game plan.
I just think, and I like them as lifters and I have a lot of respect for them.
Yeah.
I cannot quite comprehend why you'd say that in that position. If you can potentially win without even having to take your final deadlift, you go for the win without having to take your final deadlift. To me, it's that simple. I don't think it was truly a case of let's just go to the game plan because it is just 2.5 kilos. It's not as if it's like a 5 or 7 kilo difference and it's going to like really throw things off. You probably wouldn't notice the difference. And it's like, because he missed it, it doesn't really matter. But if he'd have hit that and then missed his third pull, and Joe had also missed his third pull, but he was 2.5 kilos behind, that really would have left the GB coaches with an egg on their face because it's just such a strange decision. And I don't think it can be rationalized. That was my last like big gripe with attempt selection, was the fact that they just decided to like not pull into the lead. That's so against like everything that I know with good attempt selection.
It's just the GB coaches as well, like they're experienced enough, and I'm fairly, because I remember at the time I was like, well, maybe Ade was just adamant that he didn't want to pull that much for his second and they just went with what he said. But the GB coaches do get the final choice. Like I'm pretty sure that's literally one of the clauses as part of being part of Team GB. And also like what logically that 2.5, when you've got that big of a pull, just load it anyway, because also it would have pretty much secured him second place, I think. Depending, I haven't done the maths, but
I
I think that would have secured him.
No, Duran's was aligning his stuff with Enna, I think, if Enna got his or not.
Well, even so, like, it just isn't worth not doing for the sake of it'd be different if it was 7-10 kilos, but it's 2.5 kilos.
Yeah.
He's not going to feel, and obviously, like, he kind of passed out halfway through the lift, so he probably wouldn't have gotten it, depending on what the reason for that was. But he also probably would have come out with not that he didn't have intent, but if you know you're pulling into first with that pull, are you not going to approach it with that little bit more intent potentially? I don't really know. Like, obviously, I know that he was still going to win regardless, so he probably had that intention. But yeah, it didn't really make sense to me. And I think, listen to the podcast after as well, it was like there was no regret behind the choice, which obviously there's no point regretting it because you didn't get either anyway. So I get that.
I think that's
lesson
pride.
learned for the future.
I think
so
that
too.
is just pride. I have one more thing to say about the 83s. And whilst Enna is still the best deadlifter in the world, he needs to stop being thought of as some magic man because it's clear that he can't pull 400.
Agreed.
And I think everybody, like, when they're looking at the battle of the 83s, are like, oh, yeah, it could be this. But you never know with Enna. It's like he could get, like, 420 and shock everyone. And I think it's happened enough now that we know that he doesn't have this special ability to get any weight. He made this reputation with, like, weights that he was capable of, with, like, that 370 to 380 sort of range. But his top end isn't over 400, and it needs to stop being seen as being over 400, because that's 2 years in a row where he's straight up just missed that.
Yeah.
And it's something that he needs to stop relying on. I think it's things that people they need to stop thinking that about him, because he's clearly not capable. It's a shame, because I think he's a really exciting lifter to watch, but I think it detracts from the fact that he's exciting now, knowing that he's going to go and attempt it and he is also going to miss it. But these conversations of like, oh, if it's anywhere underneath 450, I still have a chance. It's like the bit off the floor is the easy bit for him. The transition past the knees is the hard bit. And if he's never going to get past that, he's never going to get past that. So I just think that the way people see him needs to be rethought. And I just don't think he is, like, as magical as people think he is.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was literally my last point as well. I'm a big Enna fan. I want him to do well. I feel like I have to preface everything I say that's negative with that. But he's obviously working on his subtotal. And I think his lifts just didn't show up as they were kind of expected to. I don't think his squat or his bench, I can't remember his bench, but I don't think they were really where they want them to be. Like, I remember his opening squat looking really hard. He still took a 12.5 jump. I can't remember what he failed the second on, but like, he is working on his subtotal. So he obviously knows that if he actually realistically wants to win, he has to put up a bigger subtotal. So I think he is personally aware of that.
He won't win.
I think it's the rhetoric. Well, no, but I think it's the rhetoric from everyone else. Like, one, the novelty's kind of worn off as a spectator for his final pull, because you know it's over by that point. Like, I remember last year when Durin pulled for the win, Enna's had to come out to follow, but it was almost like, well, Enna wasn't going to win. We know Durin's has won at this point. Like, the celebration had started, and I think
I would disagree. I think last year was the last year where there was a spectacle, because it was still like within the realms of, oh, this is maybe possible, because he's come close to that range, and we're just not sure where he's at. This year's
I think
different.
for me, I'm just negative, and I just think he's too inconsistent. Like you said, he gets it off the floor, he gets it to his knees, and he can't knock it out, and that happens every time. And I think last year I remember thinking that was basically what was going to happen, and obviously this year he went 400 plus in his second. To be fair to him, he obviously was just going to try, right? And he was already securely in fourth place. I get it. He could have, I don't know what he would have needed to pull for podium, but he could have just pulled, and that was for podium, wasn't it? That wasn't for the win.
Yeah, it would have been on podium. Durin's pulled to make sure that he couldn't get there, pretty much.
Yeah. So I just think, like, people need to stop saying that Enna has this massive weapon, because also he pulled the same as Joe. Like, and I know it was Enna's opener. And it was Joe's third. But Enna's top end is probably 385, maybe 390.
I'd say it's in the 390s. It's in the 390s, but it's not 400.
but we've got no evidence to support that. And I just think, like,
And just
fair enough.
Put it in training.
I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember off the top of my head. But I just think, kind of like what you said, in that people need to stop saying you never know with Enna. If he has a massive subtotal, then yeah, you don't ever know. But I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't want to say if Ade's top end is an example, because Ade's yet to prove that his top end is there. Like, he does keep dropping them for different reasons. So that is part of his strength. But I don't think a deadlift is the spectacle that it was 2 years ago. And I think people need to realise that. I think he realises that, because I think it's kind of the joke that he goes with, oh yeah, I'll load anything up to 450, which I think he would load it if he's already securely in position. But it just, yeah, it's not going to get him where he wants to be. And he is working on his subtotal. You can see that in his training. I think he toyed around with potentially moving up. I don't know what his cuts like. I don't know what his body weight's like, but that might be a move for him as well. You never really know. But yeah, I do. I find it irritating, because I'm like, I just don't think he's going to get these lifts. And it's almost like a waste of an attempt when he could get a bigger total. But then I get why he does it, because what else are you going to gain? If Hungary aren't in it for team points, which I'm pretty sure they're not, he's got nothing to lose for just going for first. If he doesn't care. So I think he said he's had a bronze medal, he's had a silver medal, might as well go for gold. I think that's kind of his mindset with it.
Yeah. Who's your last A tier? Who's your last A tier?
My last A tier. This is the one I've wanted to put as an S tier. It is the 76ers.
No, that was the. To
be fair, I'm also going to just say, we only decided to do it like this, like yesterday, and it was only about an hour before we started filming that I actually put this together, and I was struggling to remember what happened in the moment. Obviously, now we're talking about it, and I'm remembering more. I would have probably put things in a different order, but
for me,
you go first.
Let me, because I was so excited watching this. This was the one that I was the most invested in, because this was the best battle. Carlina missing that squat. First of all, I wanted Carlina to win. I'm a massive Carlina fan. I just think she is incredible as a lifter. She's all heart. But after she missed that squat, that door swung so wide open for Cranen. And if this year wasn't her year, it probably will be next year, because she was hitting everything with ease. Like, every single attempt that she was taking, she was making it look easy. Her third attempt, she probably had more room. And I would have not bet against her, even on the final deadlift. And being a massive Carlina fan, thank God she missed. But that turned out to be such a big battle, where in the preview show, we thought that it was going to be Laura in third, Cranen in second, Carlina in first, with a decent amount of space. But I think with the way it came down, it was just so intense, because to give credit to Laura, she came out of nowhere. I knew that she'd gotten a lot stronger. Like, her training was indicating that she was well above her nominated total. I didn't think that she was going to be in a position to pull for the win. But there she was. Her squat was incredibly easy. The same can be said for her bench. She did have room on that subtotal to grow into, and then on the deadlift, I think she got it like halfway up. It wasn't too close. But yeah, she was that close to actually getting into provisional first, and that would have secured a second with how everything felt. And then, as I said, with Cranen, like, she had pretty much the same. Like, squat and bench were easy. She had loads of room, and then deadlift, she just felt a tiny bit short on the thighs. And then Carlina to rally from the mishap on squats, which is where she really starts to make that ground. She did really well, because she's one of those people where you watch her opener on deadlifts and you're like, I'm not convinced. I don't think it's going to be her day. I watched her and I'm like, she'll miss her third, but she just keeps it going, and they all look the same sort of just difficult attempt. And as soon as she got that third deadlift, I got so excited by that, because just to see her grind through that and put herself in a position to not defend the world title but reclaim the world title, it was an immense battle with Cranen, who just looked unstoppable until her final deadlift. So yeah, that's why that just falls at the top for me, because it was a brilliant show of lifting by what ended up being three people, all in decent contention for that top spot.
Yeah, and to be honest, I do agree it probably was an S tier, but I didn't want to put too many in the S tier, so I put it in A tier. But firstly, I think just to cover Laura, kind of what you said, phenomenal day. I knew she was a big bencher, but I didn't realize how strong she was on the other two. And I think next year, if she stays in this weight class, I don't know how. I think she's quite young as well. Very excited to see what she does. And I think I've written my notes. I think Cranen. I don't want to write Carlina off because I am a massive Carlina fan as well. But I do think Cranen, depending on what Agatha does, this is going to be her weight class in the next year or two. I mean, she's got such a good athletic background anyway. I don't think she's fully locked into powerlifting either. Like she's like an influencer and she travels a lot. She's not like got a stable routine that a lot of these lifters have. If she can like dial in and lock in with all of that as well, who knows where she's going to be. Like, and I do think one thing to say with her though, which is probably why I didn't rate it quite as highly, is she is a lifter that she's quick until she's not, is what I'm noticing with her. Like with her deadlifts, like I wouldn't have been surprised if she hit that 262, but at the same time, I wasn't surprised that it stalled because yes, her 2:45 second was super quick and it looked like she could pull anything, but I know she hits that ceiling quickly. Whereas like with Carlina, she just gets so fired up on deadlifts that she will load whatever she needs to, and I believe that she will pull whatever she needs to, and that's exactly obviously what happened. And she didn't have like a groundbreaking performance, Carlina, but at the same time, those calls on her squats could have gone either way, and her squat looked comfortable. I think I was saying to someone recently, like I do think her squats have always been borderline, and I think because she's so quick into the hole, it must be really hard to judge as a ref. And this time it just didn't go her way, which normally she gets her squats on depth. I don't think it's common that she gets called for depth from what I'm like remembering. But she still had a good day, and obviously Carlina came out on top. And I do think I'm intrigued to see what happens in the future, because I think for this meet, from what I remember her saying, Carlina did also like cut her work days down and really basically become the athlete she like felt like she needed to be if she wanted to stay on top. And I like, obviously I don't know her personal situation, circumstances and stuff, but I don't think that's necessary to make it as a high level powerlifter. I think Agatha might be skewing people's opinions on that. Like if you're like, Carlina was making progress before, but obviously it just depends on balancing everything else in life. But this isn't even just about Carlina. I think just as general, like most of these lifters on this list have a full-time job outside of powerlifting.
It depends.
Or close to.
Do you think it might depend on the job though? Because Carlina works I think she works as a nurse, and like the shifts that she'll be doing compared to, like, I'll just take Christian as an example. I think he just works at desk. It's quite easy just to get like your food in, and I mean he still trains at ridiculous times anyway. But it's a lot easier for some people than it is for somebody like Carlina. So it might just be the workload that she is under, but as well, she was a world champion whilst doing that. So it's nice that there are those people that are like an embodiment of like, this is possible.
Yeah. So basically, it just makes me wonder what is going to happen now. Like, I hope she continues to stay on top, and I don't think she's someone that's going to just quit, is she? Let's be honest. Like, she got the Sheffield invite from this performance anyway. I'm very excited to see what she does, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cranen obviously overtakes her. And I don't think it necessarily means Carlina won't keep progressing. I just think Cranen's ceiling is going to be so much higher if she has another year to just because she's definitely a lot more consistent than she was, but I do think Cranen is still a little bit erratic with some of her lifts, and like they're just places that they can clean things up. I think not in terms of standards, like she's undeniable on depth and stuff like that, but I'm intrigued to see what happens. But also Laura isn't that far behind, because I do think her actual total on the day, same as Cranen's total, isn't truly indicative of where their top strength was, because they were pulling for the win, which I think is also important when you look at these totals in like all the weight classes. If someone is pulling for the win or has like a harsh call, whatever, their total isn't a true reflection of where they were. So it could go either way. Like, it's going to be just exciting to see what they do next, I think. And I don't think Cranen's likely to get the wild card for Sheffield, just because I think USA generally has such a high representation anyway. And I think that might play into it. But if she did, I wouldn't be able to call which of them was going to win out of the 76ers.
I think the wild card's got to go to Cranen, you see. I think her performance, like, you can't use the word dominant because she didn't beat Carlina, but it was so close to being that, because I was thinking she must be a lifter that does drop off quite quickly. But when we were speaking earlier about, like, I think it should be one of the 57s that goes, my other shout is without a doubt Cranen. Because that was such an exhilarating battle. Like, the entire time, you just felt like Cranen was on Carlina's heels. And it was to the point where you're thinking, okay, like how does Carlina hold the lead here with somebody that's obviously made like a lot of progress since PA Nats even.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, for me, I think that they should take Cranen. And in terms of the female side, I don't think there are. I might be wrong here. They've got a Heather. I think
I don't know. I can't.
It's only Heather and Amanda.
Yeah. So, and also, obviously, there's a lot of things that will impact their choice of who they take. But in terms of star power, Cranen has a massive following that's not specifically a powerlifting following as well, which might make them think, oh, that'll be more eyes on it if that is something they take into consideration. And she is absolutely deserving of the spot. It just kind of depends. It depends on things like junior worlds and stuff as well, like kind of what we said with Josh. But on the women's side, there might be someone that comes up and does what Alba did last year, and they might break the world record at juniors or something like that in one of the other weight classes. We'll obviously just have to wait and see, but I'd love to see her there.
Yeah, I think we'd have probably seen them at Worlds, to be fair, with the juniors, because I think it's even more common on the female side that juniors do turn up to Worlds and compete for the top spots. So I guess where the sport is developing even faster on the female side, you may have some like less experienced lifters that do have that like athletic background that can come in and contest at that really high level because they've just already got that developed physique. So I don't think we'll see that same qualifying pathway from the female side just because of the fact that they've probably competed at Open Worlds. So
I also don't know how accurate this is, but I think someone was saying, I think it was one of the American lifters possibly, which is part of the reason a lot of them didn't bother or aren't bothering with World Games. I don't know that World Games is anything to do with the Sheffield qualification. I don't think Sheffield, apparently, SBD aren't looking at World Games to pick for Sheffield, which if that is true, I find a little bit weird because they can break world records at World Games, unless it's because it's after the cut-off of when they want to make the decisions by. But I have heard that, so that is something else as well, that maybe these people that are going to be doing World Games won't be in for a potential shot at Sheffield, so it could be one of these people from Worlds more likely.
I guess we'll find out. But yeah, I'd want to see Crane on there, I think.
Yeah.
She was just fantastic. So, yeah. And
it'd be interesting to see what she's like on the Sheffield platform as well, because she's not like a Russ, I don't think, where she's like super confident in like a big crowd, like someone like Russ that thrives off that. Like, don't get me wrong, obviously she's a very confident, she seems like a very confident lifter and stuff, but I think powerlifting is still so new to her that I wonder if she'll be almost like an Austin Perkins, where it was almost like a little bit taken back. And obviously, I'm just guessing this is what they were like.
I think she likes that. Just judging by her body language and her approach on the platform, I think that she likes the kind of like pressure.
I hope so, because imagine her competing in that and thriving in that. But it's something I would be interested to see. Anyway, we're not talking about Sheffield. That's like the 10th tangent we've gone on. Final pick, S tier. We both agree on this one. Would you like to take the lead on this one?
I want you to go first, and then I'll pick up the pieces.
Fine. Yeah, there's going to be probably lots, because I've not got tons of notes in this class. So S tier, unsurprisingly, 93s on the men's side. I think every single year I would put this as the S tier, like best battle, just because you can't predict it going in. So it didn't play out how I expected at all, but I'm also not surprised by the result, just because they are all so close. So ended up being Emil taken first, Gustav second, Kaiko third. Going to throw out the most exciting part of the whole thing here, and that was Christian pulling for. Was he pulling for third? He was, wasn't he?
He was. Yeah, he was pulling for podium. I will.
Christian pulling for podium. You go for it.
I knew his deadlifts were on from everything that we saw in prep, but again, I hope he doesn't crucify me for this. If he'd have held it, he'd have got called on soft lockout anyway. It's his curse. It's his absolute curse that he will never, whilst he pulls like that, it's going to restrict his top end, just because he's so built that his shoulders are just going to look like they're pushed so far forward, and his lockout's going to look soft. And that was my fear watching it go up. I was like, you know what, he might lock this out. I didn't expect him to get sniped with his grip, But yeah, I was fearing that it would be soft lockout anyway. And it's just one of those really difficult things with how some people are built. It's obviously not a strength issue because he is strong enough, but it's just the appearance of it that stops him from getting it. But yeah, that was incredibly exciting. I knew it was his plan all along because I had a chat with him after we did the preview show, and I was like, yeah, I didn't give anything away with the game plan. Don't stress. But he was always angling for that and just picking up his attempts across the competition. And it's just a shame that he got so close but couldn't get it. And as well, with the fact that it would have been for a world record deadlift as well, breaking the Chance Mitchell record from, was that 2020? Yeah, 2023 now.
2023.
No,
Oh my god.
23.
I thought it was longer ago than that.
Or 20, no, it's 22 actually.
South Africa? 22?
Yeah.
I think it was 22. Anyway, yeah, I think the thing that made it exciting for me, and I agree with you, I kind of didn't think he'd get a clean lockout if he did hold on to it, but it isn't out of the realm of possibility. And the fact that he's now in a position where he is healthy enough to go to Worlds and pull for a podium spot against Emil, Gustav, and Kaiko is an insane feat. And I know that Kaiko obviously missed a few lifts or whatever. To be fair, he only missed 2, and one of those was a very small jump on his bench. So yeah, Kaiko was quite far down from his best, but Christian is getting to that point of being in the conversation. And if Christian can stay healthy and just keep this momentum, who knows like what's going to happen in the next year or two. And I think that's just a really exciting thing to think about. Moving on to Kaiko. So I was watching Presser Powerlifting's YouTube video, and they spoke about this quite a lot. His lift off on his first bench. I don't think it really impacted his bench on the day. Like, I think 246 was probably his top end on the day, which is phenomenal anyway. And I know he's done more than that at PA Nats, and I think he's done quite a lot more than that in training. But I know people were criticizing the lift off from the, like, obviously the spot I know that was doing handouts. Lifting off 232.5 kilos exactly how someone wants it is not going to be an easy job, especially on what, day 5 of the World Championships, where you've been spotting and loading all week. And yes, it was like they were the one designated to do that, but it's literally, that's one of the risks you have when you get a lift off on comp day, which is why I think every single lifter needs to learn how to do it themselves, so that if they have to adapt on the day, they can. But obviously Kaiko didn't care. Like, he literally just explained to him what he wanted done differently for the next one, walked off, came back on, hit the world record in a second. But I thought the bench was worth mentioning, and you kind of look like you were about to say something there.
No, the lift off was pretty bad. Like, there's doing it wrong and then there's doing it wrong, and I think that was more kind of on the bad side of wrong. And I'm in agreement as well. Like, there should be no reason to like attack the person that did the lift off, because they are going to make a mistake. But that was quite a big mistake. You can see in the way that Kaiko took it from him, there was a massive perturbation. And usually it's just like, oh, you know, like it was a little bit too far over, or it was a little too soft. But like, to actively have your position yanked like that, I think it's more than just like a small mistake. I think it is quite a big one.
I wonder if because of the load, it was even, they tried to take way too much of it, which is what threw him off, and maybe Kaiko took more than they expected. I don't know. Either way, you can't ever blame the person doing the lift off. Obviously, all you can do is explain in your best, which is exactly what he did, which is why he's so good at what, like, he's such a professional lifter. He didn't even wait for his next attempt to explain it either. I like that as soon as the lift was done, he called him over and explained what he wanted done differently while the guys were loading the next weight, because it didn't then eat up out of his minute the next time he came out, which I think was a really good move. And obviously he still made sure to get off the platform quickly, so it didn't interfere with anything else. But yeah, he still hit a world record bench, which isn't unsurprising when it comes to Kaiko, or isn't surprising when it comes to Kaiko. And he just missed that final pull, but it was really good to see him back at Worlds. I don't think I'm that surprised that he came third, to be honest. I think on predictions I put him in first just because he is known as a reliable lifter, but actually I think Gustav and Emil over the last year, 2 years have been really like proving a point. I think Gustav's third squat was if I'm remembering right, it was a bit of a controversial call, could have gone either way. And I think a lifter as consistent as Gustav, you're surprised. It was on depth, wasn't it? I think his third squat got called.
There were 3 different cards, and this is like a small kind of like idea or just a conversation I wanted to put past you. But 3 reds on lists like that, where it's impossible to determine what the actual fault was, should there be a slightly different process to how they are determined? In the same way as there was a lift at Worlds that got 3 white lights, and there was like clear daylight in terms of butt lift. Now, do you think that it's in the spirit of the sport to like uphold standards even when there's been like a unanimous decision despite it being a mistake? Or do you think that like if they get away with it, they get away with it and just hope that the officiators improve from there? Because I think it's like that made a big difference, and I think it's still unclear to a lot of people exactly why Gustav failed. There was the soft lockout, which he was getting blue cards for. There was
All the
the
way
red
through,
card
yeah.
for depth, and then I think the yellow was for a skipped command, which I did. I mean, you kind of have to just guess that it's the case, but it
Yeah.
did look like he was hurrying into the rack a little bit after that third attempt. But yeah, I didn't know what you thought about
I'm
that.
mixed. I logically, if you get different color from each ref, then yeah, it makes sense that the jury can. Like, I think the rule is, for anyone that doesn't know, if it's a 3 red or a 3 white, the jury can't intervene. If it's 2-1, the jury can have a look, review it, and they will intervene if they think the call was wrong, like the majority vote was wrong. If it's all different reasons, then I think it kind of does make sense for the jury to watch it. Like, let's say like Gustav got called for soft knees, depth, and skipping the rack command, but actually each, like, the jury are like, well, I didn't see any of those things. No, there should be a good lift. But in terms of being a spectator, I think that just adds a whole nother level of complication that you don't necessarily need. Like, I know it's not complicated in theory when you talk about it now, but I think it comes down to, and this is a bit of a rubbish way to think of it when it comes to Worlds, because I just think it is dependent on who's reffing on the day, and that is just a fact of Worlds, and it is something that needs to be sorted, but you need to just make everything undeniable, which stupidly with Gustav, I would have said he's a lifter that's undeniable, but obviously on this day they didn't agree.
I feel the same way about it, and that's why I wanted to like raise the question of like, and you said exactly what I thought the rule should be. If all the failure cards are different colours, I think there should be the room for jury review there. Because if the refs are not in agreement on what it is, it could mean that the lift was just that shit.
Yeah.
But it could also mean that like I don't think a lot of people understood what it was for. It was like even just some clarity, or the jury just going, yeah, it was this, and not just going, okay, just walk away because it was 3 reds. It's nice to have that clarification as to why it's happened as well. Because as a spectator, first of all, that changed the landscape of the day because Gustav was the strongest lifter. And with that squat, he would have won. But as well, it's just like when you're leaving and not even knowing why it didn't get given, it's like it's a bit crap as a spectator.
Yeah, I think from a spectator perspective, it would be good to have, obviously commentary always try and do their best to explain what any failures are for, but there's times when they're also not sure. I think there should be something in play where like the jury will put on the screen, like they'll press a button and put something on the screen for the live stream of depth, soft knees, like something so that we can know what the actual failure was, because I just think it would make, from a spectator perspective, like it would just make more sense. I think like on the live stream as it is now, like it's the best it could be with what they've kind of got, at least for now. Like obviously before each discipline they have Hannah and Tiff, I think it is, explaining the rules for each lift and what each discipline is, and the live stream always makes sure, like the commentators always try and explain what a failure is for, but I just then think it looks unprofessional when the commentators can't determine what it's for either.
Yes.
So yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of thing, but I do think if they brought in a rule that if it was all different colours, they could overturn it, as much as it would kind of make sense to do that. I think spectator-wise, it would just add another level of confusion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have tons more notes on this class, to be fair. I think Gustav and Emil.
We need to speak about Emil. We need to speak about Emil because he won, and we've not said anything about him.
Yeah, I do agree. We need to obviously cover him, and him and Gustav are both just super strong at the moment, and they're both getting stronger. It's always a question of standards. Am I right in thinking Emil's second squat was depth? He failed it for him, and he went up 2.5.
Yeah, so he went up 2.5.
Yeah, which was a sensible move. He needed to go up at least a little bit to stay in the battle. He kind of got lucky that Gustav's third was failed, and then Kaiko missed a bench, that kind of evened the playing field there. I didn't realise that all three of them missed their final pools.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't my top pick, because otherwise it would have been. Because I think these three are just absolute titans. So when you just think about undeniably brilliant powerlifters, it's these three. But yeah, when they're all missing their final pool, and it's like you don't get that, like, because Crust has been going for this for years.
Yep.
And where he doesn't get that moment where he secures that final pull and gets to like celebrate on the platform, it just dampens the mood a tiny bit, and he just walks off and he looks panicked. You don't get that like euphoric moment that you're hoping for.
I can't imagine how it feels for him as well, like being so close for so long. Obviously, finally getting it must have been this incredible feeling, but like you kind of said, the panic and the dread as he's kind of just sat there waiting. Because how many times has this basically been what's happened? Then someone's made that pull.
Yeah,
like it's or like he'll last minute lose his pull, whatever. Like I'm so happy for him that he won. Like I'm really like I'm a big fan of all these guys, obviously. Like, but I'm really glad that it's his turn to win. And I'm also glad that although the totals make it look like he easily won, there is still no clear-cut favourite in this class. That there's really not. It's any given day, it can play out a completely different way, and that's what we've said for the 93s for years, and that's the way you want all the weight classes to be. It's just so much more fun to watch.
Yeah. And then the last thing to add into the mix of this weight class next year is, can Emil and Gustav hold off Russ if he qualifies?
I can't wait to see that. Like, genuinely, I can't wait to see that. I think the fact that Russ has pulled out of World Games, which, to be honest, I thought this was a bit weird. Obviously, he struggles to maintain 83. Just going to go on a bit of a tangent. So I don't watch all of his YouTube, but I kind of like try and keep up with it where I can. And he was doing a bulk because he knows after World, or the plan was after World Games to go up to 93. And obviously, he's got until Nationals to fill 93, essentially, or get as close to 93 as he can to stand a chance against the 93s in the US, which is a crazy lineup in itself. So I kind of get the logic between starting the bulk early. But if you know that you struggle to make 83 and you want to do World Games, and essentially, I think the goal for him would have still been, break the world record total at 83 one more time before moving up officially. Would you be trying to bulk before you've moved up, or like really try and push close to 90 before you've moved up? But obviously he had such good, I don't know how much you follow him, but like he had really good training momentum sitting at like, I don't remember what it was in kilos, like not even quite 90 kilos yet. Like I think he's sitting like high 80s at the moment. And he's just hitting all these crazy numbers, and his strength is like top end already. And he's still got so much time that he just decided it wasn't worth waiting to do 93. Like I think he's doing an APF as a 93 now.
Not sure. I don't know how he'd have managed to qualify into that.
I think he is, because he called it on his YouTube. He called it the World NAPF, and it really made me laugh as he said it, because I was like, "That's literally not a thing."
I'll have to have a look after, but it'd be really surprising if
I'll see if I can load it up.
he is.
I don't know how he would have qualified, but I don't know if they get a full team for North Americans, because it's not seen as that big of an event. Like, I think every year it's getting bigger. I don't know if I can find it. I'll be honest.
Bear with. I'm pretty much already there. I just need to get my hotspot on. Where is it? An APF? There it is.
Oh, I think I might have found it.
Not a lot of people do it.
Yeah, he is doing it.
He is.
This is the thing. They won't have a full team for US, so that's going to be a really good meet, to be fair. And I think this year a lot more people will watch it. We've got Taylor and Sean in the 83s, and then we've got Russ 93s. Like, that's going to be a showcase for them.
That makes no sense to me, because
It's just not that big of a meet.
But there's a lot of 93s that will never see the world stage.
Nominations aren't closed yet, I don't think, to be fair. So there's still time for them to add more, but
this many, and for Russ to already have a confirmed spot seems a bit strange, because there's 6 lifters, including Kaiko, that out-totaled that. So that's up from Brandon Jones, Demetrius Smith, Gavin Aiden, Dominique Fuqua, and Petrie. All out-totaled Russ. So it seems like it's almost like a betrayal of their selection procedure.
I think,
That's allowed them to do that.
I wonder if those guys are basically just thinking, oh, let's just take like more time off to get ready for next year. Where Russ is thinking, let's do a trial meet as a 93 and see. I think there's probably a reason behind it. And to be honest, it was probably a case of he asked if he could do it, whereas the others probably didn't think to ask. Like if you place 4th or 5th at PA Nats and you totaled more than Russ's 870.5, you might be thinking, well, I'm not going to go because I placed 4th or 5th, but they're not going to pick me. So what's the point in asking? Where actually, obviously, we don't know the reason behind it. To answer your actual question, though, I actually can't wait to see who comes out on top next year. But I kind of think Russ is going to somehow do it. I think he's.
Do you not think he already looks like the favourite?
Not until he totals. Well, we'll see what he does at NAPF. So obviously, he's not going to be a full-fledged 93 at that, but I think people probably think he's the favourite because he's Russ, but I think that's a bit of a disservice to Kaiko. I'm yet to bet on Petrie in a 93 battle, I'll be honest. I think he should, in theory, be able to come out on top, but he's just not given me reason to believe it yet. And then Gavin, again, I want Gavin to do really well, but he's not given me reason to believe he can do it yet.
Yeah. I've got to say, if Russ is doing an APF, that changes my Sheffield prediction again as well. Just to go.
I'd love it if you made it.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because
that's probably why he's doing it.
Yeah.
Or part of. I don't know though, because it depends. It's so hard with the Sheffield wildcards because you just don't know what they're looking for. I think last year, I don't think they took anyone from NAPFs, which makes me think they won't this year. But you just don't know. Like Gavin broke the record on the 93s last year, so he, in theory, would have been a good pick. But then I think the year prior, they gave him to get wildcards 2 years in a row, so maybe they just didn't want to use him again. You don't really
Taylor
know.
As well. Taylor's been speaking a lot about getting the 83 world record.
Yeah.
I forgot about him earlier as well when I was going through people that could possibly make it. But it could be the case that those two make it to Sheffield from NAPFs.
My only thing is I don't think they'd want 2 Americans to get the wild cards because they want to keep it more spread out. But it would be insane to have them both there. Like, I'm a big fan of both of them. Like, especially, I'm a massive Russ fan. I've been a fan of his before I even started powerlifting. Like, it would be so good to see him on Sheffield stage as a 93 with a mill.
Yeah, it would be exciting.
Well, when they announce wild cards, we can come back on and talk about how wrong our theories were, but
yeah, we can have a look then. But I mean, for now, I think it is Kassem, possibly Josh, Russ, and Taylor. That are my
I would love Josh to get it, but I think you've got a biased pick there just because you're mates with him.
Oh yeah,
I'd love to see Josh or Nonzo on there. I think being part of GB gives them a little bit of an advantage just because of the home crowd. Obviously, it would be good for people to support. But then I guess we've got Durins. Have we got anyone else that I'm forgetting?
Ade.
He's not been picked yet.
Oh wait! Oh no! For this year already.
Sheffield,
Durins. It's only Durins. He's kept the GB script alive.
Yeah, so it would be good to have another GB athlete there, but it just depends, obviously, who else has a good reason for them to pick. But we'll wait and see. Anyway, it's been a really long episode. I feel like we've been recording for close to 3 hours.
Yeah, we have.
I've got to train, so we should definitely wrap this up because I need to eat and then train. But thank you very much. It's been fun. I remembered more than I thought I did from what happened last week.
Same.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining me, Charlie.